I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we are opening up the special meeting, and for Robert, if you could do the first resolution.
Okay, I like that. Whereas a vacancy was created on the town board of the town of Shelter Island on January 1, 2024, with 2 years remaining in said term. Whereas the town board chose to fill said vacancy via election. Whereas on November 5, 2024, an election occurred. Whereas pursuant to the certified election results, Arnott Gordon Gooding won said election for the seat as council member, and now therefore be it resolved on December 10th, 2024, Arnott Gordon Gooding is hereby appointed to fill the subject town board seat vacancy for the remainder of 2024, effective immediately, and then for the final year of the subject term, 2025, as a duly elected member thereof. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'm not going to be the only one not to shake it.
I'm not the only one either.
All right, Maggie, now the next resolution.
Get ready, everybody.
Whereas the wetlands application was submitted by Patrick Loftus Hills and Conan Tam on July 9th, 2024, to remove and dispose of plus or minus 248 linear feet of a failed existing bulkhead and construct 202 linear feet of bulkhead inclusive of a 22-foot return and a 33-foot return and an elevation of 9 feet above sea level to install approximately 169 linear feet of stone toe armor to construct a splash zone consisting of 28 to 25 pound stone atop filter fabric extending 10 feet landward of the bulkhead to construct 146 linear foot rock revetment inclusive of a 78 linear foot return to excavate approximately 850 cubic yards of sand landward of the revetment in order to create a beach, to construct a 10-foot by 58-foot gravel marl path, to construct a 10-foot by 24-foot stone ramp, to construct a 15-foot by 40-foot stone ramp, to construct a 6-foot by 30-foot marine stair, to construct a 24-foot by 34-foot ramped sand path through deposition of approximately 46 cubic yards of sand, to construct a 76 linear foot long stone slope retaining wall of varying width, and to revegetate project. Whereas the property is located 169 Ram Island Drive, Shelter Island, and is located within the AA nearshore overlay zoning districts, whereas the subject property is in a 100,072 square foot Gardner's Bay waterfront property with a new dwelling under construction. Whereas the applicant on October 10th, 2023 received a wetlands permit resolution number 29-2023 to demolish an existing dwelling, swimming pool, patios, and decks, and to construct a new single-family residence, front pool, patio, and driveway. Whereas on December 15th of 2023, the applicant received a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation permit number 1-4732-01117/0000005 for the project. Whereas on January 27, 2023, the applicant received a letter of no jurisdiction from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, number 1-4732-0111117/00003 for any project work beyond the 10-foot elevation contour and landward of the coastal erosion hazard area. Whereas pursuant to Town Code Section 60-12B10, the project is a Type 1 action. Here, the town board is lead agency, and as such, the applicant submitted a full EAF, environmental assessment for part 1, which was reviewed by the town's environmental consultant, to which part 2 and 3 of the same were prepared by said consultant, and a negative declaration was recommended. Whereas on October 28th and November 19th, 2024, there was a public hearing held on the subject application where the public commented, and public comments were received and taken under consideration. Whereas the subject application was referred to the planning board, the town's environmental consultant, and the Conservation Advisory Council, and reports thereof were issued. dated October 11th, 2024, September 26th, 2024, and September 20th, 2024, respectively, and taken under consideration. Whereas on September 9th, 2024, the Waterways Management Advisory Council requested that the town board expedite this application as the current state of the waterfront property endangers the environment. Whereas the town board has incorporated the town code chapter 53 bulkhead review into this application, and there is an emergency environmental situation, and asking the applicant to submit a bulkhead application would be redundant and inject undue delay into remediating the same. Whereas the town board has reviewed said application with regard to the standard of review enumerated in town code section 129-5. Whereas on November 26, 2024, the town board of the town of Shelter Island held special meeting inter alia to vote on the Loftus Hills Tam wetlands permit, whereby there were 3 members present, 1 absent, and 1 unfilled vacancy. Whereas the board members present voted 2-1 to approve the Loftus Hills Tam permit, whereas since majority of the duly constituted board, namely 3 votes, were not secured, the vote approved failed. Whereas on December 10th, 2024, filled the town board vacancy at a special meeting. Whereas the town board finds it to be equitable to hold another vote on the subject application with a full board, and now therefore be it resolved that another vote will occur on the Loftus Hills Tam wetlands permit application today, December 10th, 2024, at a special town board meeting. And be it further resolved that the town board, based on its review of the FEAF, the recommendation from the environmental consultant, other relevant information and testimony from the public hearing, determines that the proposed action will not result in significant adverse impacts to the environment, and hereby adopts a negative declaration. Be it further resolved that the town board finds that the project meets the standards enumerated in town code section 129-5, as the existing bulkhead has failed and significant erosion is occurring, thus the replacement of seam is necessary and therefore will not impair but repair the wetlands and the buffer, will not diminish but rather recapture the wetlands and buffer, and there are no other practical alternatives due to the failure. Further resolved that the town board hereby approves the issuance of a wetlands permit, chapter 53 bulkhead permit to construct the subject bulkhead and ancillary structures located at 169 Ray Mile Drive, Shelter Island, Suffolk County, tax map number 710-120, as shown on the wetland site plan prepared by Nicholas J. Mazzaferro, P.E., dated August 26, 2022, last revised April 16, 2024, and landscape plan prepared by Michael Van Valkenburg Associates, Inc., landscape architects, dated August 6, 2024, subject to the following conditions. 1. Wireback silt fence shall be installed along the immediate downslope edge of development and trenched in a minimum of 6 inches and maintained until the building department approves removal of the same. 2. Project shall fully comply with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation permits number 14732-01117/00005 and the letter of no jurisdiction from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation number 1-4732-01117/00003. Number 3, temporary siltation booms shall be installed during the entirety of the construction to minimize the siltation of the wetlands and turbidity in close proximity to the critical eelgrass beds. 4, the subject planting shall be in full conformity with the planting schedule L403 prepared by Michael Van Valkenburg, Inc., landscape architect, dated August 6, 2024. And 5, prior to the issuance of certificate of occupancy, the town's environmental consultant, upon written request from the applicant, shall conduct an inspection and advise the building department as to whether the above conditions have been satisfied. So moved. Second.
Discussion.
Discussion.
As I've said before, I object to this application. I'm referring to the environmental consultant who inspected the site. In her report on the project, the stone retaining wall installation, in the attempt to accommodate the proposed change in elevation between the man-made beach and existing topography, will result in heightened vulnerability to storm damage and erosion. The area lies within the coastal erosion hazard area, she pointed out, and as such requires a separate permit from the DEC. The application only mentions activity landward of the 10-foot contour of the coastal erosion hazard area. The proposed contour changes are lower in elevation of this 10-foot contour. Therefore, the permit needs to be modified for the construction seaward of 10-foot contour. And probably most importantly, I'm concerned about this because I think it's the potential that it is precedent setting for all the work that's taking place in the vegetative buffer. If we allow this, how do we say no the next time? As we have applicants, attorneys, and engineers come up and call it precedent setting, how can we say no? I'm opposed to this for those reasons.
Anyone else have any comments on that?
I'm coming late to the table, okay, and I've reviewed all this information. It goes back a long time. I feel very compassionate for the applicant who has been put through this for so many years. It looks like it's been a long-term thing. I mean, there are lots of errors, and it's easy to point out the mistakes, okay? So really the question becomes, what do you do going forward? Okay, I share that position. I am concerned about precedent, okay? Because I think we've been, as a town, have been involved in litigation over it by various attorneys, because once we approve something, what's to prevent it from actually being an example going forward? But, what was really startling to me is the consultant's report, but basically, she's indicating, okay, she wrote a wonderful report, okay, that was dated, okay, on, let me see, where is it here now? It was dated, I just want to get my notes on that. Yes, thank you. And I don't know what happened between that report and the second, the final outcome, okay? It seems like, just give me 1 second, because, when I look at this application and I look at the report that she wrote, it's entirely two different things, okay? And I think that, I don't know whether all of this was taken into consideration, but I just want to go, when I read her report, here it is right here, okay? You're talking about excavation in a 100-foot buffer, okay, in the near shoreline. You got all kinds of things here that are in the wetlands, okay? The dock is not the problem. I really would support the dock.
There is no
Well, the bulkhead being built, okay? And not addressing the landward portion of the project, okay? The idea, okay, of this being an emergency, well, I don't know what people consider emergency, but this has been going on for how many years? I mean, that dock didn't get in that position yesterday. It's been that way for a long time, okay? And I think to use that as an excuse, okay, or some way of making it an emergency, I think it's a false accusation. I think we really have to look at, and then I don't have the answer to certain things. I don't have the DEC application. I would love to see that application that was, the permit that was submitted, okay, as to whether they had the plans and their plans reflect exactly what was presented in October 24th or 26th. So there's a lot of activity going in that wetlands area, okay? I don't know how we can wrap our head around it, because, the lady talks about, runoff from a whole ramp that's going down into and creating a beach. I don't know where that comes from, okay? So, I mean, I can go into more detail over it, but again, I'm coming late to it, but when I look at this, I don't know how you can go from this report into a negative report. I mean, just the simple pieces here, okay, of creation of impervious pathways will increase erosion, okay, stormwater runoff on the paths, creating gullies. I don't know how, I don't see any of that being addressed in any of the other consultants' work. There are and there's some really she's recommending a single 4-foot wide path to the bulkhead, retractable stairs parallel to the bulkhead should be installed in order to allow for access to the beach. Installation of davits should also be considered in order to provide access for kayaking. All of this there are many great suggestions she's made here and for an environmental review, okay, that really, I think, are not really taken into place. I don't know how we got to this last drawing. And the other part was when I saw the Costello drawing, what I noticed immediately was that the 75-foot lines and the 100-foot lines are not on his drawings, okay? And I think it's really apparent that when you see the amount of activity going on there, I don't know how we could go along with that, because the way I read the code, you should not be doing this in the wetlands, okay? So my feeling is I would support the bulkhead if it's been this way a long time. I can't even imagine the WAC really even going along with that type of a plan.
WMC.
The CAC, I'm sorry, the CAC. Okay, because it just is really destroying that whole habitat there. You're really redeveloping that whole contour on the property. Okay, so I don't know why we can't just help the people, make it go along. Let's put the bulkhead in place, and let's revisit everything that's going on. I mean, even reducing the bulkhead to 8 foot, okay, it was, I think it was 10 to 13 feet. Okay. 9, okay. So I just think that, I feel for the client, and that they shouldn't have to wait this length of time. And I know there's been a lot of confusion on it. The house has been built, there's been lots of little components, and it's easy to point fingers at who made the mistake. But I think we're here now. My suggestion would be, let them rebuild it, the bulkhead as what was existing, okay? And let's revisit the upland where all that building and structures are being put in place. I think that would be the right way of doing it, and this way we would be protecting the town for future litigation. This is going to be something that's going to come back and haunt us, because there's nothing to stop someone else to do exactly the same thing on the waterfront. But that's my statement, and that's all I have to say. I mean, it's been a lot of mistakes, and I know.
I don't know that, do you know what mistakes were made?
Yeah, I think the mistake is, really, if you had to look at it to begin with, and after visiting the site, I don't know how we built a house before we didn't take care of the docks, the bulkheads. I think that was an error. Okay, how do you let somebody, and rather than, we should be trying to bring people back from the waterfront, not closer to it. Okay, and I think those are mistakes. Yes. And I think the other part that I saw that I didn't see is we should have maybe presented this to Suffolk County Planning for their overview. Okay, they don't make obviously, they make recommendations, but we're a small town. We don't have a whole lot of planners. We don't have a lot of people here. So I think the more review you do on these things, okay, hopefully in the future, we can prevent this type of an action from taking place.
It did go to Suffolk County Planning Commission, and they sent it back saying it's local jurisdiction.
Excuse me, I read that, and I can pull it out, but they also said they'd like to see a copy of it. Okay, and they also have not closed off and said we don't, nothing to do with it. They will take our recommendation. The worst that can happen is they can say, hey, we don't want to look at it. But I've not had anybody say, I didn't read anything that said they didn't want to look at the documents.
Please be advised that our agency, the Suffolk County Planning Commission, has no objection to the Town of Shelter Island Board assuming lead agency status for the above reference. Suffolk County Planning Commission reserves the right to comment on this proposed action in the future and wants to be kept informed of all actions taken pursuant to SECRA. So, I mean, that's telling us we're lead agency.
What's the downside? What's the downside of submitting something like this for their point of view?
There is none.
So why wouldn't we do that?
We did,
Okay.
we did, yeah.
But we didn't, I mean, when we had the discussion about the IMA, we could request that the county look at an application for us, not just say it's out of our jurisdiction. We could make that special request that they could look at it. We didn't do that.
I think the process is the same. Like now, we don't have to submit it like we did, but if we do submit it, this is possibly what they would send back to us.
But they did say that we could ask for an opinion on an application. Normally, they send it back and say it's in the jurisdiction of Shelter Island, but we could have requested an opinion from the planning commission.
Well, that response came because they wanted us to answer the IMA, which we haven't done yet. And if we do, our question was, does that preclude us from going to you and asking for you to review it? And their answer was, no, you could give us whatever you want to review. This went to them and they came back and said, this is your problem.
I think this would still be the review.
This went before. We
I know, I
really,
think this would still be the same review.
They were sent the entire application.
I don't think we asked for a review. We didn't make that request. We just sent it to them. They sent it back. No, it's in your jurisdiction. We didn't say we'd like a review of this application.
Sure, we will test that in the future to see if we have like a different, like if they respond differently.
I would agree with letting the applicant build the bulkhead, build it as it was to secure the waterfront.
Isn't the bulkhead better, lower? I mean, it's 13 feet now, they're bringing it down to 9. Isn't that a positive thing?
And I'm not a planner. You're asking me? I'm not a planner, but I know our environmental planner felt that there were problems with this, and she enumerated them in her report.
The excavation of sand in order to create a man-made beach landward of the proposed bulkhead needs to be abandoned.
But that doesn't need to happen anymore because the bulkhead has failed and that has naturally washed out. There is no excavation of 850 feet of sand because it's already gone. The bay has taken it.
When that.
From when her
it was
report
after-
was done to
No,
now.
No, from when the
Well, the application was
application
submitted to
for
DEC.
TEC was a year ago.
Yeah,
Did the environmental consultant, did she go to the site?
I don't think she
I don't
did
think
based
she
on the
did.
written report. I don't think
Christina,
she
do you
visited
know?
the site.
And the runoff from the pathways creating gullies
Did you
immediately
receive it?
adjacent to the ramps and washing into the tidal wetlands. What about that?
She didn't visit the site.
Oh, okay.
Rainwater, oh, okay.
Well, we know that there are issues there, okay, now I just, you know, I can't do anything about it, but I'm just saying to you, this is gonna be something that will be used again, okay? There's nothing to prevent some other people from doing the same things in the wetlands. I think if we're really concerned about our wetlands, we should look at this differently. If it's about a dock and the emergency of a dock, let's repair the dock. Let's repair the dock and let's handle that other portion differently. Now, that's really all I'm saying to you. If it's an emergency, let's address the emergency. Let's give a permit for the bulkhead, okay? And take care of that. But all that work that's going on in there, I really can't, anybody who would visit this site and use, I was there on a day when it was blowing out of the northeast, okay? And I don't, and then we're not even addressing what she talked about relative to the eelgrass and the habitat that's in the water. So,
We do. That's the siltation booms to
Yep.
avoid
Yeah,
the
number-
turbidity
yeah,
and
number
minimize
four.
siltation.
I'm in a tough spot, because I actually agree with you too, but we're a day late. I mean, these problems should have been addressed in the beginning of this application. We shouldn't have gotten this far, but we have, and the applicants have spent a small fortune, and it's not fair to them, and the end result is going to be better. One thing they're doing is rebuilding the wetlands and rebuilding that habitat. There used to be a beach there. Go look at old pictures of Shelter Island, and there was a long beach right there. And then the bulkheads came in, and that whole beach got destroyed. And this bulkhead has now failed, and all the garbage that was used to fill is now heading out in the Gardner's Bay. And at least
Ben, I
This
think
is a
the
good
I think the
solution.
bulkhead, I don't have a problem with the bulkhead. I just have a problem with all the stuff that's going on landward of that bulkhead. I mean, but there's a lot of development going on there. And I'm just saying,
Okay.
if it's, I'm trying to find an in-between way of resolving it so that the applicant isn't delayed any more unnecessarily than he already is, okay? And I'm just saying, I think doing the bulkhead, cool. I think would be a right way, right, it needs to be done. I saw it firsthand. But I think all that stuff that's going on there, I think no one can go there honestly and look at it and say, this is not, it's in the code that you shouldn't be doing this stuff in the 100-foot. So we're allowing it on the basis that it's better than it was. And I'm saying, put the bulkhead in, okay, and let's revisit these other parts.
So part of the issue with this application is that all of the work has to be done from the landward side. So there's no way to avoid driving through and pretty much destroying that area. Because of the rocky nature of the shore and the coastline there, it cannot be done by barge. It has to be done by the landward side of the bulkheading. So no matter what, that entire area is going to get torn up. If you have to drive an excavator through there and you have to pull out all the debris, the trash that's behind the old bulkhead, there's no way you can do that without tearing up the entire place. So you want to know that it's going to be revegetated according to a plan that's approved by the town.
I'm questioning I'm questioning that buffer, how disturbed it is. It's going to be disturbed, but we're certainly not returning it or mitigating it back to what it really should be. There's no- it's-
Yeah, the plan does.
Ramps going down,
Rebecca.
15-foot ramps, 30 feet long. That's what you call, anyhow, I don't want to
Returning
be,
it to its natural state would be taking out all bulkheads, which is something that PEP has been talking about in that we should be having less bulkheaded properties. So this is actually reducing some of the bulkheading so that there is a part where water can come in and go up that revetment. And there'll be,
no, the water's coming down. I mean, the water's coming up the river.
yeah, so I mean, the unbulkheaded, I mean, that's what PEP is starting to try and, part of our CPF purchases have been on unbulkheaded properties so that we have that ability for the influx of water and back out again. So we're allowing that to happen on a portion of that property, which will have a better effect on the neighboring property as well, which is an existing beach. Right now, if we built the bulkhead all the way to where it was, there is going to be some effect on that neighboring property. So now that effect will take place on their own property instead of forcing it onto the neighbor's property.
because not only the height is being reduced, but the length of the bulkhead is being reduced.
And the report here also indicates that she's against lowering the height of the bulkhead.
I wonder why.
I mean, we had an environmental planner look at this project.
Unfortunately,
She
she
didn't
did
go
not
to
go to
the
the
site.
site, so we are asking that she visit all sites going forward. This was one of her first wetlands applications.
You know, it's just that when you look at the two documents, it's like you're looking at black and white here, okay? And how do you go from this to the other one? I don't, and I think it's, again, it's ironic that I come to the board at this particular time on something that's so critical, okay? But again, I'm coming and I'll probably be more this way because I'm erring on I'm erring on the fact that I think we need to make sure we uphold the regulations that we have. It's not like we're looking to penalize anybody, but I think there is a way of compromising here. And I think by doing the bulkhead, I'm okay. I just don't agree with what's going on. I think you just, what's next? We're going to have a slide into the Gardner's Bay? I mean, I don't understand it, okay? But that's just me. And hopefully next time I'll be here early enough that these things will be not this way, but even, I mean, I saw the CAC's report and I couldn't make heads or tails of that. I can't imagine a report from them saying this was they supported this kind of a design. And then the dates, okay, of the permits, okay, I don't see any of the permits that were with the DEC because of the coastal erosion. So I don't know whether they actually saw the right drawings when they even when they issued the permit. Okay, but
Further
I was
discussion?
just about to say, anybody else? We'll end discussion and move to a vote. Stephen, I noticed last time you called for a roll call vote. Okay. So, Councilman Dixon?
Opposed.
Larson?
Aye.
Councilman Diet?
Aye.
Councilman Gooding? Not used to saying that yet. And Supervisor Brock Williams? Aye. Motion carried. I will make a motion to close the special meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And we will go into the work session. Second. We will open up to public comments on anything that is not going to have a public hearing.
Bill Mastro. Take note what I'm going to, very quickly, we have a housing committee on Thursday night. Just would like to remind you, if possible, can we have any comments on the RFQ before? Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I've been meaning to send it and I haven't done it.
That's gonna make that reminder in the around the table.
Yeah, Liz is sitting by 5
Edits
o'clock
are due today.
Yeah,
For the town board, that's a little difficult today.
yeah, I wrote back to her and told her.
Anybody else from the public? This audience? Anyone on Zoom? Okay. The next item on the agenda is Liberty Lawn Care. Liberty Lawn Care has submitted a site plan amendment, and we had approved their existing site plan a year or so ago. But they have made some modifications, and so we're here to speak to those modifications, and the question before us is how do we proceed with this site plan? Yes. Yes, you.
It's in a post-lunch reference.
Would you pass this down to Amy, please?
So, there were changes made to the application. They're not particularly significant. There are no changes to the footprint of the building. But they added approximately 750 square feet of unfinished basement. They have it labeled as storage. I have a feeling it's going to end up as mechanicals because it's a perfect place to put mechanical room. There was originally just a large storage and maintenance floor with an office. And what they've done is where the office was also 750 square feet. They've kind of stacked up 3 separate 750 square foot areas above that basement. So there's this unfinished basement now. Was the office has been turned into a break room, little kitchen. And then they moved the office up to where there was just a storage loft. Didn't count as space because it was just storage above the office. Wasn't actual floor. They've added a shower where there was just a half bath. My understanding is because they work with chemicals and pesticides, they wanted to have a place to, you know, if somebody had to shower off urgently, they could do it there. The total floor space before was 3,090 square foot gross, and the new total floor space is 4,804 square foot gross. It's a little misleading because there's only 1,500 square feet approximately of what we would consider habitable space, finished condition space in the structure.
How much square footage, what's the current square footage?
Well, there's nothing there now. This is
I mean,
all, yeah.
The new application. How
The
many
new
square feet?
application has a total of 4,804 square foot gross.
Only 1,500 of that is condition,
About approximately 1,500 is
and that's
the office and the break room.
in the break room office, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, break room office, and then below that is this new basement, which was not part of the plan.
Yeah, before it was just a slab, now it's mostly a slab, but then they have this approximately 750 square foot basement area.
Are they adding a bathroom?
They had a half bath, and they've decided to put in a shower.
So there's more water flow?
No. No, they're not adding, they're not adding to use. In other words, it's not an apartment, it's just an office space with a shower.
And they're putting in an IA system
Yes,
that is, what's that flow rate, 360?
That's
it's,
500 gallons. I mean, it's, it's for a 4-bedroom house.
Yeah,
it's because it's commercial, I think is it 300 gallons per acre?
yeah.
That's,
And so they're actually putting in an oversized IA system.
Yes. It's primarily, as I understand, it's a funny one because it's, the parking issue is, I think they were at 19 parking places. We have this calculus in the town code of one space for every 200 square foot of area, and they don't make a distinction between finished habitable space and storage. So it's just gross floor area. So that calculus for something like a restaurant is too low, and for something like this is very high. And so probably a bit of cover.
Would be,
It's in the code.
yeah, get put on the list.
This is a very long list.
Yes.
Yeah, so the added square footage raised the required spots from 19 to 24. And they were gonna put 25.
We do have a request for a parking waiver from the applicant. Yes. Yeah.
We received it today.
Yeah, it was received just before the meeting. We knew it was, we knew they were requesting it, so I'll read it. We are requesting a parking waiver for the Liberty Landscape site plan. The proposed building has just over 4,800 square feet of interior space. By town code, this would require 24 parking spaces. The building includes 3,179 square feet of storage and maintenance area. That, coupled with the fact that the business does not need more than 12 parking spaces, we feel justifies the approval of a waiver to allow for less than 20 parking spaces.
So, yeah, the site plan code, allows you to waive any requirement in the application or review process. So you can waive that inherently. The issue we have here is that we have an approved site plan. If they want to formally amend it, it's basically back to square one. They'd have to come in, we'd have to do either they ask for a reopening of the hearing that granted it, or they submit a brand new application. Or you can avail yourself of this waiver authority, get rid of the parking requirement, because if you don't waive that parking requirement, it's going to be a type 1, and we're definitely going to have to go through a full-blown, public hearing process on it. So if you waive the parking requirement, then you can exercise your authority to grant the de minimis amendment to the site plan, and basically, because again, the footprint's not changing at all. So it's exactly the same as what you approved.
Right now, it's showing 24 spaces.
Correct, that's the new plan that they submitted.
But they're
Now he's asking for a waiver.
They're asking for a waiver to go back to what was in the approved site plan.
Which was
review.
what, 18 spaces?
I think it was 19.
It was 19.
Yeah, so it's parking overkill as it is.
Yeah.
And then to make them go through a whole new public hearing and site plan application process, when they're not changing the footprint.
What is the waiver apply to? I mean, if there's a change in use in this building 10 years from now,
Oh, then, no, absolutely, that would be,
Reapply.
they'd have to do site plan.
Any change of use requires another site plan review. Any application for a building permit requires a site plan.
So the exact verbiage is the use is significantly changed, altered, or expanded, or the intensity increased in a manner that will significantly affect the characteristics of the site. So that would require a new site plan. So here, even if you wanted to go hold them to the amendment, really doesn't seem justified, because the use is not significantly changed, altered, or expanded, and the intensity is not increased in a manner that will significantly affect the characteristics of the site at all.
and why did they request, why is it so vague? It just says less than 20. Are they asking for 19?
Less than 20 is the
Cut off the secret,
hard line, the bright line.
to make it a type 1.
So
But,
essentially they're asking for 19.
but they're not actually asking for 19.
Oh, but you can, well, after they listen to this, 19 solid.
Walter, are you listening?
Yeah.
Oh,
And the whole purpose of the site plan code is to obviously have some oversight, but also expedite the process for businesses and whatnot, and not inject undue delay.
So the question before us is whether or not we want to waive this extra parking, because the extra parking throws it into a full new plan with type 1 secret required, setting a public hearing, having a public hearing. And they've been through mostly the same process, so it's, do we want to, which way do we want to proceed, is the question.
Sure.
During the site plan review, there was a question here, okay, of character, the existing, how does this impact the house that's stuck in between? Does this project affect them?
No, because
Does it affect the value of their property?
no, because it was already approved, so the
You say
building
it
is
was
going to be there.
approved. You're talking about because the site plan was already approved, so I'm going backwards on that.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
so,
Alright.
so the
Alright.
town board already
Yeah.
approved the physical structure, so they're just talking about altering the interior a little bit.
I understand that. Okay, so I'm back to where I started earlier on. Okay, we're doing something that has already come forward, because when I look at this thing, when I look at some of the application information, okay, will the proposed new interface with the established uses interfere with the established uses in the neighborhood? And it says no. So, and again, I look at landscaping as I'm going backwards. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
So I got to get up to speed with the new ones.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to be.
These are gonna be great questions for the new applications.
I may be a problem child,
Yes.
okay?
No, that's great.
Because I'm, I look at, everybody talks about 114 or what it looks like and all these other things. And I guess I'm a little sympathetic for the person who's stuck in between these two facilities, okay? Obviously, some of it comes with it, but I wasn't part of that process.
The neighbors did come forward at the public hearing at the original site plan review, and so there were some modifications made to landscaping so that the parking of the cars in the back were more protected. The neighbor was more protected from what was going on.
Were bathrooms in place before?
Yes, a half bath.
Yes, bath.
This is just,
Going to a full bath.
yeah,
You know, I'm thinking of a piece of property that we, not too long ago, approved where we had a landscaper put a building up and it didn't have bathrooms. Okay, and I'm just talking out loud, my head is spinning with some of these things because, and the increased traffic and all that other stuff, that's all been worked out and everybody's cool with that.
correct. It's all been vetted.
I mean, I was concerned about the flow rate, but this system can more than handle it. I mean, there's a flow shift from a half bath to a shower. But the system they're putting in is significant.
Well, no, I'm coming late to the table because you've already done this and you're looking to basically modify.
This was last year.
2023.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just kind of, I'm a little passionate with the neighbors and community character, okay, and.
As you should be.
Right.
Now, this is the first time that this has come to the board where I've been sitting on. This was last year. And the setbacks are okay.
Yeah.
The system they're putting in is pretty robust. There was a half bath, now it's a full bath. Even though technically it's not a change, and that's, in my head, that's a flow change. But the system can handle it.
And we have a kitchen in this change, right? Is a kitchen here?
I think there was a
Okay.
kitchen in the original version
Was it?
too.
Yes, there was, yeah.
I believe,
Yeah.
I would argue that the water flow is gonna be a lot more affected by the fact that he's a landscaper than by whether he's got a kitchen or a bathroom or not, I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the kitchen exists because Liberty Lawn Care, I believe, don't they serve lunch to their?
They serve lunch to their employees.
Yeah.
Not all the time, I think.
When you have a landscaping business, okay, obviously there are chemicals that are being used.
Yeah.
Do we know what there's being used?
Well, though, that's the EPA.
You understand my concern is really the next door neighbors and we're talking about environment and water contamination. stuff.
That's not.
That was
that's not
vetted,
our-
that was vetted and addressed during the site. plan.
Earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
There's also no plantings to be maintained on site here to be cared for. This is just a storage building and workshop and parking for the employees. So they come to this site and then go out and do their work.
Is there,
It's a good concern. I
Yeah,
mean, from what I understand about Liberty Lawn Care, they're pretty much by the book. And that's a good thing.
because there are changes to the site plan that was previously approved, no matter how de minimis, as you said, Stephen, should we have a public hearing to let the public review this?
That's what we have to decide.
Yeah, is it in the code that we should have a hearing?
At the moment, because of the parking, because the increased building space is dragging it into having to create more parking. And so if we force them to create parking per the code and don't waive that, then we do have to have a public hearing. They do have to go through SECRA and do the whole process again. So the question is do we think they should have that extra parking?
You think it's necessary?
Is the extra parking necessary?
Can we ask a different question though?
Sure.
Can we just have a public hearing to let the public know? I mean, we're talking about right now, but and receive more comments without, I mean, we can offer the waiver
Okay,
as part of the process, but
but then say that the amendment does require a public hearing. We could do that.
one public hearing.
Yeah.
Who's it gonna
What is
hurt?
that? Yeah, I was gonna
Well,
say,
during building.
Yeah.
But, no, but to answer your question, technically speaking, yes, any amendment would require a public hearing, whatever. But the fact, this is a little bit of a different animal. This was something that was just recently approved. They didn't even submit a building permit application yet for it, right?
No, they.
No, so it's
You got-
sort of at its infancy, and it's just recently been approved, and it's a very minor change. Like, I could see if, 1 inch was changed on the exterior, absolutely. Because the site plan really is focusing on the outside operations and how that fits in with the community and ameliorate any problems with that. But since this is just an internal thing, no change to the footprint, no change to anything that anyone can see, this might be a case where you can not only waive the parking requirement, but waive the amendment process of a formal public hearing.
Well, there's one thing that may or may not be relevant. This all started because he hired an architect. And one of the things that the way this all started, as I understand it, because I've been kind of hearing about it, is that he actually, if you notice on the elevations, they decided to make it more attractive for the neighbors. And so in theory, it's less of a dumb Butler building. But then that led to some scope creep, as it often does. And that's when they said, well, what if you put and I think that's how we write it. So you'll notice it is in theory a slightly more decorative facade. It's not Parthenon.
Still pretty ugly.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it looks pretty good.
Really?
When the other building down the street, when they would do it, clearing the land, didn't the town insist on having, increasing the exit of the property?
Curb cut.
The curb cuts.
Yeah, they got a curb.
Yeah, this one.
cut.
This has
Yeah.
curb cuts, this has two,
Yeah.
so.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
One
yes.
in
Not
and one
curb
out.
cuts, but you have actually more on the apron coming out.
Well, that's,
Yes.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
Does this have the same thing?
Yes, I
Yes.
believe so.
they got us up against I guess that's state.
Yeah.
State road.
Now, and I think the fastest we can possibly get through that process would be like 2 months. So you'd be injecting 2 months into the process of Walter being able to construct and, move on with his business. So, and if it's only for an internal change, I don't know if 2 months will be warranted in this case, but it's the board's decision.
This has been sitting around for a year. Not a
We
huge
could set-
emergency, but.
We could set the public hearing.
But we have also other things we have to go through, like pre-submission conferences and things like that.
Oh, we did the pre-submission conference.
No, because we pivoted from assigning people to review
We're
things.
not gonna do a waiver, right?
Yeah.
So we'll need to first decide if we're gonna waive the additional requirement for parking, and then that will determine how it moves forward.
Yeah.
Am I understanding the process?
It's, yeah. So
Well, I think,
the reason why you wanted to waive the parking requirement was to get out of secret, so we wouldn't need a public hearing.
Right.
So now if you're gonna say you're gonna have a public hearing, there really isn't a need at this point to do a waiver on the parking, because they could present that at the hearing.
I mean, I feel like nothing externally is changing. They've already had a hearing on all of the external components of this plan. And that's really the intention of site plan. So for them to just add an unconditioned storage area in the basement, I don't think that warrants a whole new hearing process. Might be the oddball out of the table, but it just seems like
I think first we start with the parking, because the parking is going to drive the rest of it. So do we want to waive the parking? Because the parking then at least lessens the ask, takes them out of type 1, so they don't have to go through the secret process. So that would be question number 1. Then question number 2 would be, is it de minimis or not requiring a public hearing? So,
Albert, how do you feel?
As I usually am, Ben, I'm just concerned about moving forward with an application like this that offers changes, then we accept them. That's all. I'm debating in my mind for that now. For the next application that may come in that has changes,
So, I mean, the original application, they had 19 parking spaces for the amount of, functional space. Now they're adding uninhabitable storage space, but the square footage is making them increase the parking, but they haven't agreed for that parking. Am I understanding correctly? So
Yeah, they
I
don't need
mean-
that parking.
I don't see a problem in waiving the requirement for the parking because they're not creating more habitable space. They're creating storage space, efficient storage space.
I am concerned about the I don't have a problem with the parking waiver, I really don't. I have a problem with the process. And I'm not sure how to address that. I think that's the same problem you're having.
Well, and that's why I'm trying to break it down. Like, let's
Right.
first address the parking piece, because that at least defines the secret, non-secret piece, and then we can talk about the amendment process. So,
I mean, I'd like to see the
Parking
public.
is for retail space.
it's not
This is
retail.
not retail.
It's-
No, there's no public.
it's
No public.
storage,
Storage and maintenance.
maintenance shed. They don't really need any parking, I'll be honest with you.
Well, they do for their employees.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
You know.
okay, 6.
Yeah. He said he doesn't need any more than 12 parking spaces at the original site plan review, but he put in 19 per code.
I really don't have a problem with parking waiver, but I'm concerned about the process.
Mhm.
Can the usage change?
No, they would have to get site plan approval for these.
They have to come back for a whole new
Yeah.
site plan review to change the usage of the building.
And we can't just have a public hearing for the public to hear.
You can, it's saying it's gonna
That's the
inject the
amended-
light.
Yeah, that's the amended part.
Mm.
So that's why I was asking first, let's address the parking issue. And then, so where do we stand on the parking issue? Do we want to grant
Can we
the
agree the
waiver?
parking subject to having a public hearing?
Well,
It's
a two-
a two-step process.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. But I'm saying, like, I don't think that they need the extra parking, they're asking for the waiver, let's grant the waiver. So that's the direction I'm taking.
And then what
Right.
happens?
And then we will talk about amended site plan and whether or not to go forward.
And then so the amendment process is essentially the same as the original process where you do go for a public
Mhm.
hearing, correct? And then it's approved, it's just, you don't have to do the whole type 1 secret.
Correct. They would be
So-
avoiding the FPAF.
Which is just a long process. It's not-
Yeah, and it's more money. for
Which I
the-
don't have a problem with that,
Yeah,
but I want to make sure that the public is just
So
put
you're
on
saying-
notice and
Right.
have an opportunity to come and talk.
So you're saying grant the waiver, then do
And then
public hearing for
Yeah.
the
Do the
amendment.
amendment
Amendment site plan
hearing.
review.
I would agree, I would
I would
agree.
agree with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
Hi, Amber, can I just chime in here? This is
Oh,
Kate
sure, Kate.
from Cubic
Yes.
Grocer. So we're still reviewing the application, but it does look like this, the application would still be an unlisted action pursuant to seeker, so there would still be some process. It's just not the type 1 action, full process where you do have the public input and all of that, but we would still be going through an environmental review.
Okay,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. All right, so we're going with waiving the parking and having
and
a
then
public
the,
hearing.
yeah,
Yeah.
the amendment.
Yes, the amendment is
Okay.
subject to public hearing. Okay.
Jordan, you okay with this?
So,
May I just speak to this for just a second?
I can't, no. It's gonna be subject to a
Yeah,
public hearing as
there
a,
is going to be discussion about type 1, type 2 later on the agenda.
I want to speak about this issue from you. That's inappropriate.
really can't. This is a public hearing.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we are going to have a public hearing on this, so yes.
I was just going to mention that Walter Richards is about the most honorable person on the planet.
Cliff, hold on, I already said that before.
I bet it said, no big deal, that this is 2 months, even my Liberty is a landscape business, 2 months means we'll start January, February, March, we're going to start a business again and need to build something.
Don't take into account what he said. Pretend you didn't hear it.
Ring that
Sorry,
bell.
yeah, there should have been an asterisk on this one. Sorry.
Try never to do it again.
So, Gordon, you had
Let
something.
me just ask you, I don't understand, I don't understand why Cliff can't talk.
Because when things are set for public hearing, then the public.
Did we set it for a public hearing?
That's the
We
direction.
haven't.
That's what we're determining.
Right, but we haven't at this point, so why wouldn't he be able to speak? I don't understand, it's not official.
Thank you very much, but I did speak. I'm good.
I mean, I'm having a problem, obviously, with some of the agendas with the asterisks, and this one doesn't seem to have anything with it, so that's why I'm questioning, why would we prevent? I think what we're all looking for is, I think the public has to have an opportunity to speak at these things, like on Liberty, are any documents connected to this work session that we have? That the public could see any of the drawings, so they knew firsthand what we were talking about up here? Or are we just talking amongst ourselves?
If this is a work session, we're talking amongst ourselves. Most of the topics that we do discuss here are work session items that should just be board discussion. And so it's the board's decision on how we want to move forward with this application. So if we had chosen that we're not going to have a public hearing on this, then yes, we could have invited the public in to speak. But since we will be having a public hearing on this, they will have an opportunity to speak. All of public comments will be documented in the record because there are minutes at town board meetings and public hearings. There are no minutes for work
So
sessions.
we have a public work session, and I'm just trying to understand, so yes, it's a work session, we discuss it, but if we're discussing it amongst ourselves and the public doesn't know what we're talking about, how aren't we holding something back here? Why would we want people to see the documentation
They will see the.
at a public hearing?
Yes.
Right, but
And the documents are.
what I'm saying,
It's on the website.
I know that, but at this particular time, as we're discussing it, okay, I don't understand why someone from the public can't comment and why we can't have the documents so that the public is fully informed, because you're looking for more public input, but here the public is here, so why would we want to share what these documents look like? Just like the comp plan, okay, you have a comp plan, we can't talk about it. We're going to talk about it, but the documents are not there for anyone who wants to participate. I don't understand it.
Because right now, for comp plan, for example, we're not asking the public to participate. Yes. And we're not asking the public to participate on comp plan, there will be an opportunity. And if we allow some people to speak on,
I'm not talking about speaking. I'm not talking about, speaking is one part of it, but the part is that, at least, like, and particularly with the comp plan, there's nothing to follow.
The
There is a
document is on the
provided.
website.
The document is.
I know that, I know
And
that.
So then how is it not?
You're dealing with,
Let's finish this, we can go over that when we get to the comp plan,
But
because I've got thoughts
Just
on
to
that as well.
clarify, the Liberty application is on the website for people to look at.
yes, I know that.
Okay, because you were not saying that. So I just wanted to clarify. It is on there. People can follow along.
But
But
another reason
if we
for-
set it for public hearing, then, well, the document's already on the website, but I guess
Right.
it'll be put out again.
No, I mean,
No,
it's
it's-
today on the website. It's not like they come off and on, off and on.
Yeah, what will get added will be the reports as they come in, will get updated to the website. But also, when we have a public hearing, if we allow people to speak at a work session, one person may come because they have the time, it's during the middle of the day. The work session is for us, but one person may speak and someone else may watch it later and say, oh, I disagree with that, and then they try and come to the next work session. When we set the public hearing, everyone is put on notice. If you want to say something, you come then, and you get to listen to what everybody has to say at the same time, so that people get up and say, I'm for this. Someone else gets up and says, I'm against this.
These are good discussion things, but in the case of today with Mr. Clark wanting to speak, we hadn't pushed this forward to a public hearing. That's what I'm trying to say. So why, like immediately we said, well, it's a public hearing, but we really didn't vote that it's a public hearing. And I'm just saying to you, I'm really trying to say, I think it's a good thing to have the people in the audience to be engaged and make it as easy as possible for them to understand. If they understand it, they'll have less questions there'll be less going on later on. But I'm just saying today, when you said he shouldn't speak, I don't think that was right because it wasn't, we never voted on it.
If we had said we were going to waive the parking and we weren't going to send it to a public hearing, then the public could have spoken. But since we said we're going to waive the parking, but we're going to set a public
I
hearing.
don't know about the we part, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
Actually,
I mean,
There
we
was a
do
public comment section where he could have spoken because we hadn't started talking about it.
So, I mean, it's, usually doesn't create controversy.
Why cause so much trouble, Cliff? But actually, when we called for public comment at the opening of this meeting, actually, Cliff could have come to speak then. Because we hadn't even, why not?
Well, technically, well, because it should have been stored.
Wasn't it for public hearing?
No, this item should have been stored because it should be public hearing or something that has a high potential for a public hearing. Because like, it's totally not fair that the applicant's not here. And that the public can try to persuade the board not to have a hearing or to have a hearing on something that the applicant has no say. That's inherently unfair.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's really just supposed to be a discussion amongst ourselves as to how we want to handle the process for this application moving forward. So, that's kind of the intention of a work session.
So we're scheduling a public hearing?
We are going to schedule a public hearing.
Yes.
That's the answer. So let's just clarify. Is everybody comfortable waiving the parking requirement?
I am, yes.
I am also.
I am.
Okay,
Okay, all right. So then we'll move forward with the amendment process, which does require the
Setting the
public
public-
hearing.
Yes.
Correct, and just so you know, if it's an amendment application.
Right.
So for some reason, if you vote it down, the underlying approval will still survive.
Right. Yes.
Just the amendment that we're having, okay, we're not relitigating the whole situation.
No, yeah.
Just-
So if
But we're
it's-
amending it down to the parking spaces that he's already offered.
Yeah, the 19 is what's been approved.
So if we
Yes.
vote down the amendment, it goes back to the original.
It's always, yeah, it's gonna be
Original
19.
Right, right. And we're just not allowing an unfinished basement.
All right, so then we need to schedule what's this called?
Site plan amendment.
No, the pre-conference hearing. We need to schedule that, then we can set the public hearing. So
Okay.
we'll do that first. So we may not be setting this
Can
on.
we did assign, because we did have one already, and we assigned everyone the tasks that they needed to look at. It was the day before Thanksgiving break, right? So we did do this. We assigned people tasks, which is why Grocer is looking at the secra. And
All right,
so
then
we did do
qualify.
that.
You were saying it
And we
didn't, but
said they,
I forget, because I didn't think we got into assigning because we decided that this is gonna go a different direction.
Not
Too sure.
It was another one that we went through.
My notes don't have assignments. And this is,
Yeah, this one I don't think we
this is
did.
my copy from that meeting. Yeah,
Nah.
yeah, I don't think we didn't. We did two that day.
oh, I see, okay.
So we have to schedule the pre-conference. So we probably won't be able to set it on Monday unless we
Got
can
it.
do it
Okay.
Friday or Monday, basically. Maybe Thursday.
Yeah, I got the two applications backwards in my brain.
Okay.
And not, this is significant, like, well, how much time will this add to the process?
If we could set the public hearing on, looking at the calendar, on Monday, we have the organizational meeting on January 6th. Our next town board meeting is January 27th. So we'd be setting the public hearing for that. I mean, it's possible
Do it faster.
we could add setting the public hearing on January 6th to,
Yeah, why not?
or you mean have the public hearing on? Normally, we don't have, the organizational meeting is,
Yeah, you really
It's usually pretty long.
yeah, and there's a lot that goes on.
You have to
This is.
notice it in the paper.
Already.
Yeah.
It's a burning issue, yeah. That's good. That's good.
The applicant brought it back to us, they could have just proceeded with
Yeah.
their existing approved site plan.
Great.
Okay.
That works.
What's the timeline? This,
There's possibly, we could still do it January 27th, because we could at a work session have a special, either next week, on the 17th, we could do a special to just set this public hearing.
We could set the public hearing Monday.
We have the pre-conference.
Well, it's over a
Yeah.
month out.
Yeah. Caitlin? I don't know if you're still listening. Oh, good.
Hi.
Would a January 27th, would you be able to finish your review for the unlisted by January 27th?
Yes, we can certainly work towards that, and, we are still reviewing. If you have any questions, comments for the applicant, we will definitely coordinate with them, and we will work towards having it as close to complete as we can, but of course, we do want to capture some of the comments from the hearing as well.
Yeah. Yes, of course, yeah. But at least you can have all your preliminary work done. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. All right, we'll work on that and keep everybody posted. You'll see when we have a special or set this one. You have to recuse yourself on the next
Yes.
agenda item, which is WQI rebate.
You know when you're done.
Yes. Yes. Yes, Jessica sent it around to us. This is an application rebate by Thomas and Eileen Murphy at 14 Sandpiper Road. WQIAB approved moving forward with a $16,000 total funding request, a base grant of $12,000, a well replacement set aside of $4,000 for a total of $16,000. It's in a near shore overlay. It is a failing system. It is a single tank block cesspool. So they thought this was a worthwhile project. There was nothing, there's no planned construction or anything of that nature. So we just make sure no one has an issue. We will set this for resolution on Monday.
No, that's
Build system, replace it with an IA.
Okay, all right. Let Megan know she can come back. Next is, we need Stephen back as well.
He's coming right now. Okay, I've spoken, right?
Yes. You see him outside? Back in here. All right. I'll wait to start for him to come in. So we're picking up type 1, type 2, the discussion, and so Town Code Section 60-12 speaks to, for purposes of this chapter, type 1 actions include all of those given in Section 12 of Part 617 of the New York Code Rules and Regulations, and then further down in 6012B10, any operation which may degrade or despoil any freshwater or tidal wetlands. And so what this has started to do is applicants are getting pulled into type 1 actions that would normally be type 2. And so, Stephen, you have some examples of projects where this has happened. And we're getting feedback from professionals, like our environmental analyst. When she first saw it, she said, why is this considered, on one of the applications, why is this considered a type 1? It should be a type 2. And then we had to say, no, we have 60-12B10, which is pulling it into type 2. And she thought it was odd and like not proper in accordance with New York State law. And I'm going to let you take that part of it.
What was the application that she was referring to?
Gayer, I believe.
Is it Gale or is it?
Which is the property next door to 169 Road.
There's Ludeman as well.
And
Wait a minute, I think. you
Ludeman
are.
got pulled into a type 1 when
Yeah,
it's
might
just a
be.
residential.
Yeah. But anyways, I'll let you explain the conflict. But it is, there's been a number of people, applicants, attorneys, applicants, environmental people. I was actually getting my hair cut one day and someone, when she discovered that I was the town supervisor,
Wow.
said, I see that you've hired Teresa Mason as your environmental analyst. Why on earth did she qualify this application that I saw as a type 1? Like, she's going way overboard. You need to talk to her. And I'm like, no, that's our code. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess that's why she's not really going overboard, which is like the first negative I've ever heard of from anyone about Teresa. So, but it was kind of interesting because I'm like, wow, like I have no idea who you are, who you work for. And you work for an environmental consulting firm on the South Shore. You're aware of what's going on Shelter Island.
For a minute there, I thought you were saying that your haircut was.
No, it's unlisted.
It's unlisted. Yeah.
But anyway, so it has created some chatter, so that's why we're bringing it to the rest of the board's attention, that we've got a conflict going on here, and what do we want to do with anything about it, so.
Our own type 1 list lay dormant for a long time. Nobody even knew it existed. So, even when I came on, I was just processing everything off the secret list, if it's a type 2, if it's residential, and, I'm dumbing this down a little bit. If it's residential and it's an accessory there too, it's type 2. Area variance is type 2, let's just move on and whatever. But unbeknownst to me, we had this type 1 action list, which de facto converts clear type 2s into type 1s. Now, the town board is authorized to create its own type 1 list. And I'll read it exactly from the DEC regulations. Agencies may adopt their own lists of additional type 1 actions, may adjust the thresholds to make them more inclusive, and may continue to use previously adopted lists of type 1 actions to complement those contained in this section. Designation of a type 1 action by one involved agency requires coordinated review by all involved agencies. The important part in the regulation states an agency may not designate as type 1 any action identified as type 2 in section 617.5 of this part, which is, the list of type 2 actions. And then if you go into the secret handbook, it speaks to this as well. And it basically states that you cannot convert. Can a statewide list of type 1 actions be supplemented by an agency? Yes, but it can't convert the type 2 into type 1. So the handbook that interprets the regulations, both are simpatico and basically say you can't do that. What you have to keep in mind is when we're talking about type 1 and type 2, we're talking about actions. We're not talking about locations. So the action in and of itself of a single family home being built or a garage in connection with that, regardless of the location, it's a type 2. Because the DEC, when they created these lists, they looked at, will this one action in a vacuum have significant environmental harm, and they deemed no. So it could be in the middle of a subdivision, in the middle of suburbia, no, it's a type 2. Or it could be in the middle of wetlands. The action in and of itself is a type 2, and you can't make it a type 1. So that's what they did here. They sort of converted it from being a clear type 2 into a type 1 based on location, and that's because if the construction of the house, for example, may degrade or despoil any freshwater or tidal wetlands, in our code, that's a type 1. And also projects will introduce or make possible new homes or other facilities for human occupation or habitation in flood hazard areas of the town. It's taking an action, which across the board is a type 2, saying just because you're in this flood hazard area, you're automatically a type 1. We cannot do that according to the regs and the handbook. So that's my interpretation.
Then where are our protections? I mean, don't you want to do that?
Yeah.
No. Protections and secret are two different things.
I know.
Secret just makes sure, powers that be take into account the environmental considerations in making decisions. So our wetlands code can be strict and can be strong and can be protective and can say, hey, you house, you have to be 100 feet from the wetlands boundary. But that's apples and oranges between SECR.
SECR is not the tool for doing that. That our wetlands code is the tool for doing that. SECR is, part of their reason is, essentially, the DEC made a statewide ruling on specifically the type 2 list, saying that these things are not environmentally impactful according to our regulation. So for us to try to force an issue into a category that doesn't conform with the state, it's not the appropriate way to handle it. If we want to be more restrictive, then we have to do it in our wetlands code, not try to use the state's code to do it. So we
Correct.
still have to follow
And
this
again, the
legislation the
state-
way it's designed.
State code is not prohibitions. State code is just saying, hey, township, you better look at these closely. You better make sure you weigh community character, aquifer, it just injects those considerations into the decision-making process. And I think clearly if we were challenged, we would lose this, just because the regulation, like I said, it added that sentence to make it crystal clear, that an agency may not designate as type 1 any action identified as type 2 as a type 1. It's clear.
You're looking at 617?
Yeah, so- Yeah, it's page 9.
I think part of the way we got into this problem is that our chapter 60 was written in 1986. And then in 1991 or 97, and then updated again in 2019, SECR solidified their type 2 list more in 1997. They came up with a stronger, more comprehensive type 2 list. And we never updated our list from 1987. So I think that we just never quite caught up with the state's regulation. And we never realized that our code creates a backdoor conflict with the state code. And I think that's something that, we need to address in some fashion so that we don't actually just create problems for ourselves with the state legislation.
How do you do it?
How do we do it?
How do you do that? How do we have better
We
protection?
have to, I would say, remove them from the type 1 action list.
Yeah, so there's,
Let me ask this, excuse me. Go ahead.
you can go.
Loftus Hills.
Yeah.
Is that a type 1?
Off this hill,
That was
no, that's unlisted.
unlisted.
It's not a type 1?
No.
But it's not a type.
How could that not be a type
I
1?
know.
The
Really?
environmentalist said it was an unlisted action.
But unlisted is almost treated like a type 1.
Right.
Like type 1, the only real difference between a type 2 and a type, well, I'll say unlisted, is really you go from a short form to a full form, EAF, and you have to add additional information. And then the agency has to make a neg deck or a pos deck. Is it going to have a significant impact, adverse impact on the environment or not?
What is the downside to having that full form? That full review? On, let's say, a wetlands app.
I love it. If we can do it, I would love to do it, but all I'm saying, it runs afoul of the DEC regulations, runs afoul of the handbook that interprets the regulations, and that you could open yourself up to litigation. I don't see a downside to doing that review, but I'm saying it just runs afoul of the regulations.
Until we finish discussion at the table before we I think one of the things I'd like to see us do is just, we've been working on the wetlands. We were giving our environmental consultant a little bit of time to get used to reviewing applications. So we had set aside the wetlands. We'd like to, especially now that she's seen it and understands like how things are getting dragged into type 1 from type 2, that we schedule another subcommittee after the holidays to sit down and go through and take a look at what is the benefit of something getting pulled into type 1 that we want to maintain and incorporate that into our wetlands code?
Without finishing the wetlands code process, I'm not sure why we're talking about this. They should be done together, they shouldn't be done separately.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, and that's what I'm suggesting, is that before we pull this, which, I mean, there's concern, and I know that there's members of the public who wish to speak, and in fact, few, that are getting pulled into this that could legally come against us. And I am concerned that we do have one situation where they may be preparing a lawsuit against us. I think they're probably weighing whether or not it's worth their while to just finish the secret and get it be done and move on, or whether or not it's worth their while to challenge it. So I don't know exactly.
I just want to, just to your point, I misspoke on Loftus Hill was a type 1 action because it was deemed to be any operation which may degrade or despoil any freshwater or tidewater wetlands. And since the work was occurring in the wetlands, not outside, it was deemed a type 1.
I don't, and my proclivity is to not lose the review of protective measures for wetlands application.
And that's why we need to incorporate it in wetlands, because we're not doing it correctly.
But you can't,
And
yeah,
we could legally be challenged.
you can't do it through the state.
It has to be done through the code, not through
Right.
this.
What I would
Right, as well. Go ahead.
what you can do, and we did have it in the wetlands code, and there was some pushback as to why we had it. In the wetlands code, most of the work, again, if it's in connection with a residential dwelling and whatever, it's deemed type 2, but they were asking for the short form EAF. If it's a type 2, you don't have to do any EAF whatsoever. We can ask for an EAF or even designate certain projects to have to submit a full EAF. So you have that information on a case-by-case basis. Like, you may not want it for everything that's in the wetlands code, but there might be certain actions in the table that you want a full EAF. And that's just information gathering. That's what, you don't have to go through the whole process and do a POS deck or a neg deck and an EIS, but at least it gives you information so you can make an informed decision on whether or not to grant the wetlands. So you can take what you like about secret and put it into our wetlands code. But we can't, again, make a clear type 2 a type 1 because it runs afoul of the regulations.
I was looking at section 617. Point 7C.
Wait,
All type 1 actions, the lead agency making a determination of significance must thoroughly analyze the identified relevant areas of environmental concern or whether a proposed action may have a significant adverse impact on the environment. And I, under that section, is a substantial adverse change in existing ground or surface water quality or quantity.
What page is it? I wasn't on enough.
617.7C.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah.
6.7.5.
7.
And there's other words in there, air quality, but
But
it
that's
lists,
for a type 1 review, so that's something that you have to incorporate
Into our.
into our own code. We can't.
yeah, no, that's what I'm, yes, as long as we have those
That's
protective
page
measures.
No, absolutely.
If I just found it, okay.
No, I agree with you.
Understood, though, we have to fix the problem in our code, but we have to fix the code. So, and
And first, we would have to decide that we want to take up amending this, and we'd have to draft something. So, and then that would require a public hearing. So this isn't going to get repealed today. There's a process we have to follow. But I think that we should.
But we already, just so you know, that the original interpretation of 60-1210 was anything that was within the 100-foot regulated area would need to be a type 1. But then, I worked with PW Grosser, and again, the plain meaning language here versus our wetlands definitions, a type 1 would be any work that occurs in the wetlands as defined in the wetlands code. So that's how we're processing it now. So, but there is urgency that we have to clean this up. And, you know, I may have to go through all of them with a fine tooth comb to see if there's any other crossovers, but I don't see off the top of my head, other than the flood zone area.
Yeah, I think 4 and 10 are the most problematic.
Yeah.
I mean, 3, we might want to tweak depending on the application. I mean, it seems like a weird one, but we'll have to look at it.
Could this be something where we could simply add a line that says, with the exemption of any application that's clearly a type 2 action as defined by 617 something, or is it too much?
Yeah, there's too much interpretation there.
Okay,
I would just want to get rid of these.
The problematic one.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So do we all agree that we need to address this in some fashion?
Possibly. I know there's a couple of people in the public who may want to speak, so why don't we, before we make a decision, we'll not make a decision. Come on up, Peter, here.
Okay, Peter Reach. So, as you know, I brought this to you guys a couple of months ago, I think now. And I think it's just, you should just get rid of 60-12B10 as soon as possible. Before studying other stuff, you may want to change stuff in wetlands, but do the stuff that's going to keep us from getting an Article 7. As a taxpayer, I really don't want to be funding lawyers. Sorry, no offense. Defending Article 78. It's we're in clear violation. Due to the way it happened is, I think, the way Meg outlined it was put in 86. The state changed, but we didn't catch up with it. So I would say just delete that one sentence, just do that at the public hearing, boom, 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 try to get that done as soon as possible and protect us against litigation. Thank you.
Supervisor, councilpersons, Cliff Clark, Director of Meetings. Anyway, I'm comforted and encouraged by what I hear, but I want to put some meat on the bones of what this is already done. We have a project in South Ferry and the ratepayers in South Ferry. We should be halfway through construction of a 20-foot extension in our office building, and hopefully we would have been well along by now. And we had everything in under type 2, and it was changed in the middle of our process. In fact, I didn't say we're one of the second entity that got affected by it. And I was told by our council that you could win a lawsuit, and I said, this is my town, they don't sue my town. So it's not gonna happen, it's never gonna happen. But we back in the 80s when we built that building at the office, we went way beyond DEC codes, because the one wetland on one side of the road is my backyard, and the wetland on the other side of the road is a family favorite clamming ground. And so nobody cares more about those bodies of water. And the things we did is we didn't harden the deck for a parking lot. We left it a porous blend thing. We had the option. We left a 50-foot mowable lawn on the other side of the parking lot. And we created a swale that it runs down before it gets to the wetland. It gets into riprap and a big sandy hole that the DEC, that would be okay to do. And it would direct any runoff that might come down into that. Everything we do down South Ferry, from having biodegradable hydraulics on all of our boats and platforms and gates, all those things, totally biodegradable. Closed water system for the coolant for the boats, where there's nothing going out the exhaust. It's all internal like a car. So we go out of our way to do that. What we have already done is spent probably over $10,000, because once we were put into type 1, we had to say, do we sit and wait until they change the law, or do we move? And I said, we're going to move. And so we had to get new engineering, we had to get 2 new surveys done. We were told that we had to get rid of that grassy area and offer up beach grasses with sand down there so it'd be less runoff. And it was all kinds of things that we re-engineered, and things we had to do. So, and the original plan was for the building, we narrowed it down from the existing building so it wouldn't get any closer to any of the wetland, even that part. We're hoping to put public bathrooms in there, but unfortunately, that's going to require all kinds of problems. We just can't put the septic system we have to put into public bathrooms. Would be ridiculous. So I just applaud the fact you're going to look at it very closely. make it as narrow as you possibly can, or eliminate it altogether, but make it to where you get what you're really trying to get, and not just get this one broom sweeps all, one brush sweeps all. So I just appreciate the effort you're putting into it. We're locked in, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do whatever secret needs for the type 1, because right now we have to. But it's probably gonna cost $20,000 to ratepayers. And that's not, we don't sell balloons and lollipops on the boat, we charge ratepayers, we charge you folks. And we have to do that, and that's what I'm standing for. So thank you very much, I appreciate what I heard today, appreciate how hard your job is. I've sat on the school board for a while, and I don't want to add to your problem, I appreciate what you do, I know all of you, and I respect all of us, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Is there anyone else in the physical audience who wishes to speak? Pam, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So what I'm hearing here is that what you were looking or discussing is changing chapter 60 of the town code then, and removing number 10 that says any operation which may degrade or despoil any fresh water or tidal wetlands. So,
That's
you know,
one of the considerations.
yeah, and I understand the conversation. I'm not really sure I understand why some single-family dwellings have been brought into a type 1 action when clearly the law says that they are type 2. Maybe had to do with demolition or something happening there, but any operation, I mean, you know, I think what we need to do is look into the intent when this law was written. What did the writer of that sentence mean? Because that's not just that. We're not trying, I personally don't believe that that meant building a single family home, obviously. Maybe if it's within our wetlands boundary, we have an issue 100 feet from the wetlands, then that's where it would come into play. But I think that we should really try to look at the intent of the law when it was first written and find out why that's actually there. I mean, I could name operations that I would consider may be a significant impact on the environment. So to just strike it from the code directly seems not satisfying what we're trying to accomplish here either. Sort of what Cliff just said. You know, it's like there's got to be a balance where we find out why was that written and what do we really want that to mean. And the same goes with the flood zone. I think that those are crucial areas of Shelter Island. We know that the shoreline is fragile and you know, it's important to look at this properly instead of just trying to strike something. I don't understand why there's litigation on projects that should have been designated as tier 2, type 1, type 2 actions on single family residences. So, but I would tread carefully and really consider that, and consider making the cross reference in 129 and perhaps even making the cross reference to the Near Shore Peninsula Overlay District. I mean, we know that we need to do upgrades to our code. We know that the town code, you know, there has been talk about sending it to a professional company to review the code and all the loopholes and all of the controversies and conflicts. And this is one that I would just like to suggest the town board taking some serious consideration before we just do this quickly because something's in the background hanging on right now. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pam. We'll look at that. Anyone else on Zoom? Okay. So timing. Like, I sort of feel like we should do them hand in hand with the wetlands, but if someone thinks that there's an urgency that we should work on sooner.
I don't think they need to be done hand in hand. I think you can take care of this conflict because it's with the New York State code, not our code. I think we can take care of the chapter 60 now because no matter what, we still can't make type 2 actions, type 1 actions. So, you know, no matter what, this has to get cleaned up. And we're already, you know, mostly through our wetlands review, so I don't think it'll take that long to update the wetlands. So I don't see a problem clearing up this conflict with the state code first, just so that we're clear of any possible legal issues.
I don't want to, I don't think we should, go ahead, Albert. You go.
No, I would like to make sure we have an aggressive timeline to work on the wetlands code and not let it go as we have.
Yes, yeah.
If we're
It's
gonna
time
do
to pick it
this,
back up
I
again.
mean, let's
Let's do it right.
work on it.
So you're saying do it hand in hand aggressively?
I agree with Albert, doing one and just striking it, no. I mean, let's fix it right. Threat of a lawsuit, that's not a real, that's fine.
Well-
If they want to sue, let them sue. But we can get this fixed, we can get it fixed quickly.
Strike that from the record.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you can't control people, we're gonna do.
But the thing is, this doesn't impact. I mean, they're not really
Not tied
tied
together.
together. They're two independent problems,
Well, number one, people are actually treating them as type ones and doing that work.
which
And
is
we
the
need to-
problem.
Yeah, but we need to build it into the code to fix that problem, so let's do both.
Well, I think we first should solve the immediate danger, which is the fact that our code is creating a backdoor to making type 2 actions type 1.
Because we're not only talking about the threat of litigation, we're talking about injecting delay in money where residents shouldn't be spending all that inordinate time and all that money.
It's gonna be easier to clean up this chapter 60 and make that problem go away, and then we'll be able to completely focus on the wetlands code. And there might be more ideas, options, and opportunities in the wetlands code that are gonna take more time to process. But no matter what, this issue of chapter 60 is, it's not gonna get better by waiting.
Yeah, because the benefit you want from this type 1 list can be put into wetlands regardless if these are in existence now or not. You can still take the good you want from the secret oversight and shove it into the wetlands regardless if these are in existence.
Absolutely, and we should do it.
We need to
The
adjust
the
it.
impetus is, you tie the two together and then they both get done.
No, but you wanna make sure you're not rushing wetlands to solve chapter 60.
Right, wetlands is
You know,
very
it's,
sophisticated.
you can solve chapter 60 without rushing wetlands and making sure you do that correctly. I'm concerned that if we tie them together, we're gonna end up rushing wetlands to solve chapter 60 when we could just solve chapter 60, get it out of our heads and focus on wetlands.
I'm
And
still
then do
gonna
it.
rush chapter 60 when it hasn't been.
Where are we on wetlands right now?
We already have a draft and it's
Yes.
out the environmental
There's a rush because
consultant.
people pay money to meet that type one. That's where the rush is.
So the current draft of the wetlands code is with the environmental consultant for her reviewing comments, and then it's gonna come back to us. So it's almost done. It just needs another round of review before it goes for public hearing.
And then it needs to come to town board,
Right.
because it's been in subcommittee, but it hasn't come to a full board yet.
It's gonna take a while.
No,
Hold on
yeah.
a second, but I want to hear from Gordon first, and then,
No, I just wanted to know what the time frame is. I mean, when we talk about, how far out are we? How long would it take to get this thing done?
Well, that's the thing. So with any large code change, so the wetlands code is no small code, right? So there's a lot of significant changes in it. So it could take 6 months to get it done.
Probably.
Because you're gonna have multiple hearings, you might have multiple revisions. It's gonna go back and forth a few times, I would anticipate, because it is a significant section of our code. So, I mean, 6 months is not an unreasonable timeframe for making these kind of changes.
How long has the subcommittee been working on this?
Good question.
And who's on the subcommittee?
Albert and I.
Just the two of you alone, or you have?
No, because then we also had planning board input, CAC input, the building department input.
Really,
So, yeah. And we gave it to this board. Haven't you guys seen the draft? We've already reviewed it a little bit.
a little bit,
Yes,
yes. But
so
then
this was like a few months
we
ago.
had-
Just so it's all accurate,
Yeah,
we went to the PEP meeting, PEP said, hey, we're gonna hire this professional who's gonna come up with a general model code for the East End for wetlands. So the town board decided to put it on the back burner to see where that was going. We now come to realize that it's not really gonna go anywhere, so we have an environmental consultant on payroll, so we're like, here, take this and see if you can recommend it, because the environmental analyst consultant works over in Southampton. They have a pretty good wetlands code over there. She's gonna take the best of what Southampton has, put it into ours, and also look at ours from a detached view and give recommendations. So that's where we are at this point.
So
I,
after,
in answer to Gordon's question, I think that we could potentially by the end of April adopt something, having had one public hearing, rewrites, another public hearing. So.
it's better than mine.
Mhm.
I would have said June.
I was gonna say.
But I will, so Bill, you had a comment?
Bill Mastro, okay. Simple one, is just trying to address the issue that you raised for today and not the wetlands code. And I don't have any of the code in front of me, but I believe you said it was 60-10? That's
60-12,
Yeah.
D10. Why not a very simple modification to that language that clearly indicates that other than those situations deemed type 2 in New York State?
I don't, because that's referring you to another section of the code regulation where there's room for interpretation. We got to be clear on
But if
this.
you wipe it all out, then I can see why you might want to delay it. I'm trying to, I think Meg's thing was right. You don't want to marry them. Solve this in the short term. It doesn't have to be perfect in the solution.
That's
But
what I'm
then it
saying.
eliminates.
No, but if you just, again, if you take them out completely now temporarily, you don't have the issue anymore. You're working on wetlands.
I get,
And if it comes out through the wetlands process that maybe we want to add something in there that doesn't run afoul with the regulations, but is added protection and doesn't make a type 2 a type 1, then you can do that.
I totally
But the
agree with it.
quickest
That's
short
the
term-
better,
yeah.
the better long-term solution. But you could have a short-term solution that at least takes out the worry that you have two. You could just take the piece out, but if Albert doesn't feel comfortable with that part, that you're taking it out, what are we eliminating, what Pam referenced? Just say that those things deemed type 2, where there is a complete conflict, that you can write it that way. I mean, I can't write it here because I don't have any of the language, but I think that's writable. I think that's
No, but
something.
again, my concern is it opens it up to interpretation, and who's going to be the arbiter that this particular one falls into a type 2 versus when it's just not there at all.
But you're doing that for a short period of time until you get the wet code. Well, I think it makes it.
I don't think
easier
one
than-
has, in my humble opinion, one has nothing to do with it.
All right, we agree to disagree, but I think you have an avenue here. You could do a short-term
Yeah, I hear
solution.
what you're saying, Bill, but my concern is that it'll just kind of create a mess because if you're gonna do a Band-Aid on chapter 60 for a short term, then we also have to remember to come back and remove the Band-Aid once we've done the wetlands code. And there's no real guarantee that that consistency is gonna be there in a year when we're done with the wetlands code and remember to come back to this. And we might end up with the same situation that we have now where we didn't keep up with the state code, and so now we're in this pickle to begin with. I just don't want to leave strings that could trip people up in the future.
And
That's,
This is also-
I'm just trying to come up with a solution.
No, I
that's more
appreciate it.
short-term.
I appreciate it, yeah.
this is also devolving into a mini public hearing on, I would suggest that.
That's true. I agree with Steve. I agree on the other, but I agree on that.
I just have a question. Does not the DEC cover this if you do take out that paragraph? They already covered type 1, type 2. Why can't we lean on that and go to the wetlands and put it in there? I mean, what was that?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's still getting well protected.
That's what Stephen and I have been saying.
Thank you.
We agree with you.
I think
So let me give this to Gordon, because this is what I gave you guys all a couple of months ago, and you don't have it, so, yeah.
So my recommendation would be that if it's the board's will, that I prepare a draft for discussion at another work session. Set that draft for public hearing.
Work on a draft. We'll discuss it at a work session and see.
Yeah. There could be some changes at the work session before we notice it, but let's just start at that.
That'll work.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you. Good meeting. Appreciate it.
And if I can task you two with setting up the next
Wetlands?
wetlands subcommittee meeting.
Yeah. Christina, Teresa hasn't responded, has she? Yeah.
She'll be right, but we can jump.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure if she had sent us something back. I hadn't seen
No, she
anything.
hasn't, but she.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And we're working around her availability as well.
Yeah, that's
She's
fine.
gonna,
Yes, I think she should be part of the subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so you may have to do a late in the day get together.
And we can review her written notes first, and then if we have
Yes.
questions, we'll set up a meeting with her so that we can ask her the questions. So that we're not wasting her time trying to sort out what we want to ask.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the calendar. Okay, so I had circulated a calendar a few weeks back. And the question, normally the town clerk's office just prepares a calendar. I had looked at it because there had been chatter about moving our work sessions to evenings. So I had taken all of the committees and I've been tracking their adoption to make sure that there weren't any changes that created new conflicts. So the key question for us is, what do we want to do with our town board work sessions? Keep them at Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, or try and move them to an evening. I'll start. I'm in favor of keeping them at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays, as they've historically been for, I don't know how long.
Same here. I agree. I think trying to move them to an evening is problematic for a number of reasons. One, it takes it outside of the normal working day, so it makes it harder for the clerk. Then it's also harder if we want to get experts to come in and present for us, because it's outside of their working day, so it may not be their regular billable hours. I think it's gonna be problematic to get people to, log in at 6 o'clock for a work session. It's just, I think it's gonna be more difficult.
How many potential Tuesdays were there?
Not many.
When I looked at it, the way it was shaking out was in January, we'd have to have 2 work sessions on Friday evenings, because those were the only days available, and then back to Tuesday evenings. The rest of the year gets a little easier, where work sessions would be on Wednesdays for the first 2 weeks, and then Tuesdays for the rest of the month, until we get to May. And then we'd have to have a couple of May Friday work sessions and back to Tuesdays.
Is there any way to consistently set this up, or so it's pretty defined?
This is what I, like, that's why I went through this.
I mean, rather than
exercise.
Fridays, Wednesdays,
Well,
or,
it's,
so we can designate some work
yeah, I mean, for the
sessions in
most
the
part,
evening.
yeah, most part it'd be like, if it's the end of the month, it's gonna be on a Tuesday. If it's not January, not May, then it's Wednesday night. If it's January and May, it's Friday night. And there's a little bit of,
It's jumping around.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's all
except
over
for
the
November would
place.
be December, would be Monday night work sessions because of Veterans Day, Election Day, ZBA. And I think, yeah, I could not, unless we start telling committees, I'm sorry, you can't meet on your usual days. And we're asking volunteers to then, do things differently, and we might lose some volunteers who had availability where they landed historically. But it was hard to get anything that was clearly consistent. And again, when we had people come from the state for, to speak about, assessments and just any state or county agency that's coming to talk to us, we may not be able to accommodate them if we're doing it at night. And then we've also got the staff considerations as well.
Bert, I know you give this a lot of thought. What's your feeling about it?
I've looked at it. I need to spend more time with it, okay? I've been inundated, okay? But I like the evening meetings, okay? I think we want to encourage more people to come out and to be in office, and people, and for council people, you know, it's okay for retired people, but we're not accommodating the people who have a job. And I think that maybe there's a way of doing that. By next week's meeting, I'll lay this out a little bit more clearly, okay?
My counter to that would be if someone wants to run for office and they get elected and they have a job, unlike myself, when I was on the town board, or Meg, which is, you know, a family-owned or, you know, personally owned business where you can set your own schedule, then we would address it in that year if someone's elected and we need to change the meetings to accommodate them, so that we're not.
Well, I'd like to address this up front, okay, only because how do you get people, you won't get, they need to know that there are evening meetings, okay? That they're not really going to be tied to 1 o'clock on Tuesdays is really difficult for a lot of people. Okay, and I don't, at this moment, I don't really have a plan, but I will look at this again and come up with something, but I think it's a problem. I mean, we want other people to, there are plenty of talented people, but I don't think they have the ability, first of all, the 1 o'clocks are a problem. I mean, it's okay for us, but it's not going to be okay for people who have jobs.
Then when you have someone who's newly elected and 1 o'clock doesn't work for them, then that board is the one that would change the calendar. So if 1 o'clock on a Tuesday works for all of us, work sessions are meant for
But they
our
may-
discussion.
They may not
And
run
so-
for office knowing that they may not run for office if they don't know there's something in place. If you-
What we're saying, then the new board, like, new people taking office for the.
Let me come back to you. Can I do this rather than, you know, we'll.
When you go away and consider, you also don't lose sight of the fact that we have lots of committee meetings.
I know.
That meet in the evening. And we're gonna end up having a meeting every day in the evening during the week. I mean, every day.
We'll revisit.
Also, yeah, and just keep in mind that work sessions, I mean, running for public office, that's one thing. Like someone coming in, yes, we need to accommodate them. But work sessions are predominantly, every so often, we do have, you know, allow public commentary on certain things, but work sessions are truly for the board. So for this year, we need to just keep doing our work going forward. So just like, we're the ones that we need to make it work for.
Right.
And the public has an opportunity to Zoom in. They can watch it on YouTube. They can watch it on Channel 22. They can go to the YouTube station and watch it at any time, you know, not live. So there are plenty of opportunities for the general public input. But do we want to change the 2025 calendar for someone who's not elected yet? So I just toss that out there.
Well, it's not about really even them not being elected. It's really more, the public wants to participate, and I think it makes it easier at certain times. 1 o'clock, people are not, on Tuesdays, people are not, from the public are really not here unless there's an issue that really involves them, okay? I think it's easier for people to attend in the evenings than it would be at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday.
Our public meetings are at 6 o'clock on Mondays.
I know that.
So that's where.
That's after it's all over.
But that's also the official
It's over.
record. So that's the portion where it's appropriate for taking public input and public comment. The work session is actually, most places don't take any public comment from the public during a work session. So we're unique in that sometimes we do allow public comment and input on a work session, but most locations around us don't even do that. It's strictly a meeting of the board to discuss topics and move items forward. And so, truly the appropriate place for the public input is at the public hearings for legislation and, permit reviews, because that's when the record is official. I mean, people can always email us their comments and commentary and, but the work session is not the appropriate place for that information.
I don't know what's appropriate, okay? I don't know what, these words appropriate and fair, I don't know, I don't understand them, but all I'm thinking is that the more the public is involved, the easier it is for the board to get things through. They have to buy into the concepts that some of the legislation which you're proposing. And I think that the more, how we do that is something else, but I think that we need to get them more engaged, okay? They're part of the decision making. We really work for them. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Take a look at it, because to your point, like, I have no social life. I have a very understanding boyfriend. He's like, whatever. But, so I don't care when the meetings are. I'm just thinking in terms of staff and just making things work properly.
Yeah, there'll be more over
Yeah.
time.
And also, if we start at 6 o'clock, like it's 3 o'clock now.
Yeah,
We've
we'll
had
never get done.
We've had work sessions at about 4 hours. Not allowed to go over 4 hours according to Kevin, because then I mess up channel 22. But if we start at 6 o'clock and go until 10 o'clock at night, we all start to fail a little bit. I'm gonna have to start drinking caffeine again. If we go to that.
I guess at the organizational meeting is when we discuss priorities for the coming year.
Yes.
And I think that, when we talk about the wetlands, that's a high priority, okay? That is something that we should, we got affordable, with the community housing. There are certain things that we really should, I think, we got a lot of things going on, but I think we got to focus in on a limited number of things and bring them from the start to the end in a real judicious way. I mean, this thing with the wetlands just didn't occur this week, okay? This has been going on for how long? I thought this is not a new phenomenon that we're working on, correct?
What, the chapter 60 or the wetlands code?
The wetlands code.
No, we've been working on that.
Wetlands has been worked on.
No, I mean, but I'm saying the issues that we've had with it in terms of the environmentals,
That's new.
large homes, all the stuff we've been dealing with, it's there, but we need to just take some of it and just complete some of it. That's what I'm trying to say. I'd rather do less things and get them accomplished.
And we've been trying to do that. We need to get comp plan done, because as was mentioned earlier about rewriting the code, bringing in a consultant, we need to get the comp plan done so that we can finish it and then look for the funding that would bring in a legal consulting firm to help us with that kind of stuff. So, that's a huge thing. And we've paused some things because of not finishing the comp plan, like proportionality. We took that off the table because we couldn't come to an agreement, and we repealed the pyramid law, because again, that's something that was in comp plan that people were objecting to the fact that we were dealing with zoning changes when outstanding comp plan. So, we definitely need to keep moving things forward. Comp plan needs to be number one. Wetlands we can work on at the same time, but I have been trying to step everything through this year. It's just.
My question for you is, the organizational meeting itself is the meeting where we pass all the resolutions to establish what we're going to, the calendar, annual appointments, things like that.
Appointments of everybody.
So the discussion of priorities would be at the work session following that,
Next
correct?
step. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just so that there's no confusion, we're not going to be discussing priorities at the organization meeting, it's the work session after, just to clarify.
Same week.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I knew you were misunderstanding, like that was
Yes.
never made clear to you, yeah.
Yeah, in my head, it's like, first,
Right.
the first work session is where I would start to do that again. Okay, so we're not going to do anything with the calendar, so.
We can talk about it again next week.
Yeah, so-
We're gonna have
Yes.
some suggestions.
Yes, exactly. And the staff are starting to load up the committee calendars, because the various committees have been adopting their calendars for the year. So at least we're not stymieing them. I would like to come to a conclusion next week, just because we need to know, we have hearings and things that need to start to be set up for the new year. And right now, I don't know, I can't set I usually have the next 3 agendas going in SharePoint. So I'm running out of December, so I need to start moving things into January. So I just would like a conclusion next week, please. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we have a discussion on this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Again, I know what you're trying to accomplish here, and I guess what I was trying to say earlier is it would be good for the public, they don't have to participate, but if someone's watching, they don't know what you are talking about. And I think the drafts, okay, that you have all the adjustments you're making should be published so that people can follow along, because they don't know what we're talking about. I sat here and I didn't understand what was going on because my numbers were off and everything else. So I think it makes it easier at the end because they feel and somewhat they've been part of the process. But I think if we were in an echo chamber amongst ourselves, I don't see the downside.
Okay, the draft that I think, like you coming on board, the draft that's out there is just look for the date here, is the July 2024.
Right.
That's
the draft we've all been working on.
That's the draft we've all been working on. I didn't bring that original draft. I did start to mark up what Coco and Lena have been working on. And I think I scared Coco earlier today when I started to show her all of those paper clips for the first 52 pages are things that I have things on. So I'm starting to lose it a little bit and Coco's starting to lose it a little bit because we've got too many drafts going. So what I want to do is I want to finish taking everything from my original July 2024, the comments that we've discussed so far, and sit down with Coco on Friday and try to incorporate them all.
And also just make sure that she's understood our comments as we understand them, because it's really hard to be in Coco's position, sitting at the table, not looking at exactly what we have written in our pages and trying to, recreate that in her version.
Yeah. So what I wanted to do is to not get into, so I invite any of you who are around on Friday at 2:00, because that's the time that Lena and Coco are available, to just sit down, to just go over editorial stuff so that we can get all of our edits from what's published on the website into this, because right now it's not working. And then anything that's still an open question, we can bring back to the work session next week to say, okay, here's what's left open. It's kind of policy or direction, not editorial, because I've got I took the
Spelling, commas.
when I was home with COVID last week, I took the list of participants and went through and compared it to the tax map to get people's proper names and names that I just was like, oh no, that's not how their name is spelled. Like Kathy Drosky in the back of the room, that's not how her name is supposed to be spelled. So I fixed that. So there's a lot of that. So I'd like to get all of those editorial comments changed. So I know you've probably had the copy from the July release.
Yes.
So
Right.
I would suggest continue to work with that.
But I don't have any of the things that you were talking about. You had redlined items and stuff. I didn't know what you were talking about.
They're all red lined and I just printed you the copy.
Oh, here?
That one, yeah. That's what we have.
So that's
comments
what's
so
so
far.
far, but it's not complete because
Yeah.
my edits have not been incorporated at all in here. So that's not the right copy for the public to be working on because it doesn't have everything so far. And there's things where it's Coco and Lena didn't understand, the introduction's getting moved here and this page is here and this is getting pulled from page 25. And so it's right now it's completely out of order. So my suggestion is continue to work with the other one. And if you've got comments from the old one, you can use what Coco's got there to say, oh, okay, that's been addressed, that hasn't been addressed. And we have this,
And once we get it all sorted out, it's gonna be posted.
Yes,
It'll get
exactly,
posted
yes.
again
Yes.
with the edits.
Yes, yeah.
Posted before it goes back to the consultant
Oh,
Yes.
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
for
And
discussion.
we'll be discussing it again, once these edits are
Yes.
done, we'll discuss it again at the table with your
Mhm.
commentary.
And then we'll have 2 public hearings,
At least.
yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be my suggestion for you. I need to finish like transcribing my edits from the July 24th draft. Also, Coco and Lena did this great, like, okay, this is like things that we picked up on from the meetings, like who's responsible, what's the status, like this. That's a good one to even look at. Address the illegal conversions section. There's responsible person has AD, Albert Dixon on here. So Albert was going to rewrite that section. So the draft that Coco just gave you, you can take a look and see like, okay, what did Albert write? Like, are we in agreement with that? If we're not in agreement with it, then highlight that because that will be something that we bring back to the public works session to say, okay, Albert, you wrote that, but I'd like to tweak it this way. So there'll be an opportunity for us to publicly discuss changes and direction. So, but right now it is a little overwhelming. And that's how I felt.
If I can intercede also, anything on this list that's the first 4 pages of the printed copy I gave you, like Albert, you were gonna look at the park section, you can email that to me any day this week, and so we have that by Friday, because I really just need to focus on the punctuation at this point, and I'm glad to have a second pair of eyes on it before we send it to the consultant.
Okay.
So if you can use this as your guide to the copies I gave you and I emailed you, that would be a good start. And send me anything that you want included that we might have referenced, that, doesn't need to be discussed, or we can enter it with a question mark to be discussed at the next work session, then we can just proceed to the final version.
I invite any, and also maybe it would be helpful for you to, if you're available on Friday at 2, to just come, because that way you can sort of see like, wait, why was that done? Especially some of the paragraph movings and, like the things that were already discussed.
When is that on Friday?
2 PM. Albert, I don't know.
We'll be in
if
this room?
Probably, there's nothing scheduled for this room. Okay. But this is gonna be a true roll up your sleeves, like page by page.
Long and boring.
Yeah, no, like, seriously.
Text long and boring.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be like, well, should we use the word water, or use the word, pond, like, it's just about punctuation and grammar and.
There are a lot of paragraphs we move from here to there, and we want to make sure that there is the correct there, so that kind of thing. Making sure that
And then we
it's,
haven't even, we have to do all this to get to chapter 11.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because what we want to do is get the main body, all of our edits incorporated, agreed upon, and then chapter 11. Cross-reference each and every recommendation and. Yeah, so, but we have,
it's not a small feat.
no.
Just to be noted, so the concepts are still there from the July 2024, but everything has been moved around. So,
And there's been a few rewrites that different people
Yeah.
have submitted, and then there's also been like sections where it's like, we don't need this, and so we wholesale scratched. There was one page where it's like, good, I think we just got rid of half a page.
and the sub-chapters, like, 7.4 is now 7.8.
Right.
Those type of things. And that's where we want to get the body done, or else we'll, before we can do chapter 11. Right.
And anything that is, substantive, I would say.
Yeah.
Not an editorial comment, but more substantive, has been documented in these 4 pages. So,
agency have this to be confusing and frustrating because I was on the comp plan committee for 3 years and then I'm confused and frustrated.
Well, a lot, in the PDF that I sent you, a lot of the changes are marked, they're highlighted. You know, if it's just a word, it's highlighted in pink. If it's a sentence or a deletion, yellow and purple.
So what we gave Gordon is the yellow one, look, that's highlighted yellow? That-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been changed.
Yeah.
So the one that I sent you, it's been changed. Maybe you want to get a copy printed then?
That would be great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I'll get that, yeah.
I'm gonna wait until we're done with all the
Okay.
things and then.
Oh, right, yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm working with,
Intermediate copy. It's too many.
So that's sort of the plan. Does anyone have any other comments? I want to stop touching it because the paper could go off and then I just like, oh no.
No,
we're good. Yeah, click on the page. What comment am I gonna miss?
We can move on.
Okay. Okay, oh, board member reports.
Okay, so I'll send everyone an invite for Friday. Yes, please. And I'll print you that copy. Okay.
I can start. Okay. Notify me. I keep bringing it up almost week after week. We are going to be getting rid of Code Red as of January 1st, and Notify Me is going to be the replacement. In the tax bills, we had passed the last board meeting, including this little enclosure in everyone's tax bills to show, like, why do you want to sign up and how to sign up. Things have picked up since we've been promoting it at these meetings. People are signing up. Every board member should be on it because if there are, emergencies, road closures, flooding, Grand Island's going to be cut off, or there's an emergency at one of the ferries, rather than Chief Reed having to reach out to each board member or even do a blast email to say, hey, this is going on. Yep. It would be helpful to him and to anybody in our staff if once we push out something on Notify Me, especially for emergencies. So please make sure, some of us have signed up, I'm not sure if everybody has. So please do that. So it just saves staff time in sending out notifications to all of us.
Well, and the other non-emergency side of Notify Me is that you can sign up to receive updates from whatever committees you want to get updates from. You can get updates from the senior center, you can get updates from the rec department, and it'll send you out agendas. So you can sign up for all kinds of things, not just the emergency side, but the emergency side is very important.
Which is, I'm pushing emergency side right now.
Yeah.
Just because we've got that hard deadline, January 1st. Yeah. Code Red disappears. So, but yes, it's broader. And people will see that once they
Once they go in.
like, oh, I could sign up for this, that, or the other thing. Let's see, we are publishing, we have a couple of, we have one staff position that we're looking for, which is the social worker. Our existing social worker has moved recently. She continues to do the job remotely and comes back to Shelter Island approximately 1 day a week. So we are publishing case/social worker. It's 8 hours a week for the social worker position, and then up to 8 hours for anything that is opioid related. So that's been, it's on the town website, it's going to be in the newspaper. We have a detailed job description, Coco has it, but please, the concern is finding somebody. So, and it's a very.
Is this the block, that grant? It was 100,000 or something like that?
Yes. Mhm.
Is that what that's paying into this?
That's paying for 8 hours of social worker time. Yes, a week, 8 hours a week. But it must be.
It's 100,000 though, wasn't it?
100,000, about 70,000 is for assigning one police officer to the East End Drug Task Force.
Okay.
And so it pays for covering the overtime of losing a police officer for a month to 6 weeks, working on the East End Drug Task Force. And they have been very effective. It's working with the.
How is that determined? How much goes where?
We just did a budget. Usually when we send somebody to the East End Task Force, 1 month to 6 weeks is a good block of time for them to actually become effective and work with the rest of the other.
I mean, the board votes on how much is allocated to what area?
No, well, it was done in the grant application.
Okay.
So we looked at this amount of money was available that we applied for. So if we could make a difference with this reassignment of a police officer, and if we could do something with the social worker, working with people with opioid drug issues, as well as some educational component for the public, like there were 3, you attended a couple of those, the speaker series over at the school that was presented to the middle school, high school, and then the community. So we put in originally for approximately 70,000 for the police officer and 30,000 for the social worker. We've done a budget modification because the social worker, we don't have as much time that she can spend on a weekly basis that's needed for working with intervention on opiate stuff. So we were able to divert some of that money through a budget modification with the county grant program to pay for the speaker series.
This is for opioids only?
Yes. Yes.
So it's not for social, it's not for.
No. And so, it's.
It's a significant amount of money.
Yeah. And at some point, I know Chief is on that, but I'm not going to make him like step up right this second, but at some point, we can have him come in and talk about the first year of the program and the effectiveness of what's been happening with the East End Drug Task Force. They have made some very good arrests and investigations, so.
Just to jump back to the notify me,
Mhm.
have we given that to the senior program?
Mhm.
So they're helping them
Yes.
get online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as other board and committee volunteer opportunities, we've got an opening on the Community Preservation Advisory Board. The thing that we discovered, Gail Wickham, who's the attorney for the CPF board, had noted that we are required per the overarching New York State enabling legislation for CPF that we should have an active farmer on the CPF board. So that is what we need to advertise for. She has been tasked with defining
A farmer?
who would qualify under active farmer. And then, so she'll be coming back to us, but Coco will be putting that out there for advertisement. We're always looking for members for the Ferry Study Group. Once a year in January, we meet with North Ferry and South Ferry. So it's an opportunity just to get updated on what's happening, if people have any service issues, if it's a year that either ferry's asking for a rate increase. That's the Ferry Study Group is the first line of people looking at it before the public gets brought in. We're also looking for a Green Options Committee member, and we are also looking for a member for the Licensing Review Board, the Contractor Licensing Review Board, either a current home improvement contractor or a retired home improvement contractor. We really need that person. The board can be 3 people or 5 people. Albert and I are both signed up to be on that as liaisons, but we really need that person, so.
Do we really
Oh, excuse me.
do we really need to have someone who is a contractor?
It's in our code.
Yeah.
It's in our code.
It kind of makes sense.
We did receive a
Yeah,
resume
just
for the
today.
contractor review board today, so we have a possible applicant.
How many members on the board?
Right now,
Right
No.
now,
Amber
there's
and L.
No, what you would have,
3 or 5.
3 or
Right
5,
now, there's 2.
2 of you.
Yes.
We need to have that.
Yeah, we do. We desperately need that.
Yeah.
And then once we reconstitute that licensing review board, we need to look at our code section because right now it is homeowner complaint driven, and I want to change that so that if we have a bad player that comes to the town board, the zoning board, to say, oh, mea culpa, we built that extension and didn't get a building permit, we can haul in that contractor to say, hey.
Yeah.
Because,
So if there are 3 members, you're just missing a contractor.
yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
What about a person from the public?
That's who
We could
are
move it up,
applying.
we could take it up to
I
5.
mean, because like, I don't know I mean, I think contracting is it's good, but it may have a bad side to it. But, it's really about regulations, what they broke, so they really, I don't know.
We could definitely take it up to 5, and
Right.
that would be welcome. We have had no applications. We've had one application from somebody who thought they could fit the bill as a contractor, but they didn't because they weren't a home improvement contractor. They were a dock mooring contractor. So, we weren't able to take that. But if we can get the 3, we can get started, and hopefully, once we get it constituted, then we can have other members.
And it's not just the home improvement contractor, they have to reside in Shelter Island, plus have their business on Shelter Island. So that makes it very hard.
Yeah.
But you could be a retired person who had your business on Shelter.
The retired factor I actually think is important. It's really hard to have an actively working contractor on the contractor review board. I think it's actually better to have a retired contractor on the board.
Yeah.
It's less conflict of interest.
Yeah, 'cause I think there's been 1 or 2 people.
The contractor
Take my
is
competition.
somebody who's involved in construction.
Contracts.
Right? Yeah.
Commercial contractor?
Home improvement contractors, the way it's the code sections
It says current home improvement contractor.
are retired.
That's the code that we wrote, or that's the code?
That's what we wrote.
It was a code we inherited with just a current contractor, so we amended it to retired contractor, to include retired contractor, just to see if we could get somebody so we could reconstitute the committee.
Right.
If we don't get anybody, then we'll have to look at the whole.
So this is a code that we create, that's not mandated by the state, there's no.
Correct.
Correct. This
Correct.
is town code.
Yes,
You really could, you can adjust
change
it to whatever you want.
Exactly.
yeah.
So
It'll be faster if we can find someone who fits the code than if we have to go and amend the code. That's a 2 to 3
Public hearings.
month process. And if we have an applicant, we could start next week.
And you also want some industry expertise and.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was, I mean, why it was written the way it was. I can't remember, do you remember off which code section it is?
It is
I know.
79.
It's under H, I was looking at it. Yeah, I mean, this was first adopted back in 1975. And it was amended in its entirety in 2021. And then we just recently made that few word amendment. But anyway, so that's one of the positions, one of the community volunteer opportunities that's out there. Let's see, meetings that were held since last week. We had West Water met on Friday.
CAC?
Yeah, West Water, the wells numbers 5 and 6, the new wells are just about done with all of their testing. So wells 5 and 6 will be taken out of service soon. And there should be capacity now. Discussion about a few people who live adjacent to the defined district who would like to tap into West Water. So now that Suffolk County Water Authority is almost to the point to say, we do have extra capacity, we could let these few people in. We need to look at what's the mechanism for that happening.
Yeah, and what are the terms?
Right.
So for people who are already in the district who need to tap in, because weren't there? Well, there was a new construction that had to tie in when they.
If someone's already within the defined district,
Right,
not a problem.
it's a no-brainer.
They just have to pay the tapping fees and pay
Right.
for their, connection to the main. It's really, I think there are 3 people who are just adjacent that want to.
Okay. Is that just a
Maybe
matter of
4.
redistricting?
Well, that's the thing is, do we redefine the boundaries of West Neck Water to incorporate them. There's also Suffolk County Water Authority. If you're not in a district, then you're automatically in Suffolk County Water Authority's district.
Right.
But then what's the mechanism for them for Suffolk County Water to like tap into West Neck Water? And we wouldn't want someone to like pay Suffolk County water rates, but they're tapped into West Neck Water. So Stephen has been tasked with talking to the attorney at Suffolk County Water Authority, and then also investigating because there's DEC, the permit for West Neck Water District, what modifications need to be done there. So, yeah, so you've been tasked to do the legwork on figuring out like what are our options, what would need to be done, what's the timeline.
Doesn't the operating agreement with Suffolk County Water doesn't allow any expansion of West Neck Water District?
We're starting to look at that, and that was my understanding, and it's not written exactly how my understanding.
It does, you can add new customers. However, if you need enhanced capacity to accommodate those customers, then town board has to approve. So right now, again, they can if they don't need enhanced capacity, but I'll speak to the attorney for the Suffolk County.
That has enormous consequences.
Oh, yeah. No, I was
Enormous.
surprised when we started to talk about this yesterday. I was
I mean,
like, wait, that's not my understanding.
Expansion of Suffolk County Water Authority, I think that remember
I
I watched the meeting on YouTube
Mhm.
and Joe Baconi talking about that
Mhm.
and saying, I'll check with my legal department, see what can be done. And then you and Lisa and I will get together offline. And it's like, that's not something to be offline.
No, we're gonna bring it back here. That's why I'm bringing
Yeah,
it up.
no, I'm just saying, Joe
No.
Baconi saying that.
Oh, yeah, no,
We'll have it
just the
offline. That-
investigation.
no.
No, just the investigation to understand what the paths are. But it will come back here because I, like you, was under the impression that they could not tap into without permission from the town, without a modification to the operating agreement. Stephen's first take on it, since he's been tasked with it since yesterday, the meeting ended after 4:00 on Friday. So I have concern, and I'm bringing it to you all because I want to make sure you're kept in the loop on this.
Shop.
So
Yes.
who's meeting? Is it meeting at a public meeting or is it a different meeting, a side meeting?
Stephen is going to talk to the attorney at Suffolk County Water Authority just to understand how, like, what the process is according to them, like how they normally would do it. And then also to go through our operating agreement. So then Stephen will come back to us, to both the West Neck Water Board as well as this board, because we need to be kept in the loop on this one.
But as I recall that comment, wasn't it that Lisa and there was a group of people meeting, they were gonna meet individually?
Oh, that's on a different topic. So Stephen's tasked with the legal part
Oh,
of
right, okay.
dealing with the operating agreement and including the people. The agreement that Joe Corney, myself, Lisa, and Stephanie, she's from the finance department, that has to do with the billing. So we have to pay a surcharge for the improvements. So Suffolk County Water Authority put 1.7 million, I think it's in excess of $1.7 million worth of improvements. We're on the hook for $1.7 million. So that was paid for via basically a payable to Suffolk County Water that's paid over time. So each year we get an annual bill that says you're charging West Neck water rates. Here's what Suffolk County water rates are. This is what we collect to pay for our operating agreement. That differential then goes to pay the surcharge.
Right.
That surcharge is not enough that's collected via rates to pay for the entire surcharge that's due for the year. I think the surcharge is like $93,000. So in last year, the differential created about $60,000. The town had to write a check from the West Neck Water class account, about $30,000, and I'm rounding numbers roughly, to cover the additional amount of surcharge. We just got information for this year's surcharge. Lisa and I went through each and every billing with a fine-tooth comb and said, we don't understand, we have some questions. It doesn't look like the person got charged for a summer, any water use. Can you please go back into the records and check that? There were some credits, reversals, ins and outs that just weren't making sense to us, that just don't look right to me. So we're gonna go through all of our questions, because what they say West Neck Water owes for the surcharge, that's not covered by the differential isn't what I thought it would be. And so red flags went up, because it's like, oh, no, we have this amount of money and I'm expecting. And once we get past this billing, I will update my spreadsheet and show you all like this, and the West Neck Water Board, because they're the ones who recommend initially what rates to charge. Like it will take this many years for us to use up the money that we have in the reserve account for West Neck Water before West Neck Water needs to increase their rates to then cover what's not being met with the differential. So I think originally I was hoping for like 8 years or 7 years. But if their billing is correct, it's not going to last as long. We also do have the $500,000 grant money that's came from DASNY. It will impact that and will go to pay down some of the 1.7 million. It was actually 1.2 million, so we'll bring it down further. And so that means that the differential that we need to.
How long was that grant been in place? Or that application for the grant?
They have not submitted it yet because they have to finish all of the work. Like their grant was.
Submitted then?
No,
It's
the
a
grant,
reimbursement.
yeah, it's a reimbursement grant. So the grant was awarded, so that work has to be finished, and then you apply to get reimbursed. So they're in the process of accumulating all of the costs to go to support the $500,000 grant. So they're working on that. But it won't have an impact, because it will just allow that money that we have sitting in the West Neck Water accounts to last longer, is the way we're going to structure it. Although I know there are some in the community who say, I want an immediate discount, but then if they get an immediate discount, then they're gonna have to
Have a rate increase.
a rate increase.
Sooner.
So, yeah, in, year 3 instead of year 8, something like that. So that just all needs to be analyzed. But, so the meeting that you were referring to is just to understand and make sure that we're doing this correct.
If the grant's going to be applied to they're not going to see the money, it's going to be applied towards the
The debt.
overall debt.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
on the tail end.
Yeah, so our surcharge that we're paying currently $96,000 a year will go down to $66,000 a year. So that gets us closer to the differential in rates will cover
And when you run out of money, what happens then?
rate increase.
Increase.
Stephen, as part of this review, it's one thing if people want to join the system voluntarily, but what is Suffolk County Water's power to force people to join the system?
We don't have any.
You sure can't, if they access the neighborhood? Like, if 40% of a neighborhood says, I want the water, don't.
Are you
pay.
talking West Neck
But
Water, or are you
that's
talking
different.
about? Yeah,
Yeah, the West Neck Water District already has a boundary,
Yeah.
right? So what we're talking about is people
It's
on the
Suffolk
edge of that boundary who are requesting to sign up
And that's
because
fine,
they don't have good water,
and
right?
that's fine.
Now, yeah, if
No,
they're,
not a problem.
if they're already in the
No,
district.
we don't know that, Ben, excuse me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be so quick to say that's fine. If Suffolk County Water expands out of the
Well,
district,
that's my question. My question is, if it's outside the district,
Then-
what
then
rights
they've
does Suffolk
expanded.
County Water have to expand outside to other parts of the
They
island?
have unfettered right to provide water to the residents of Suffolk County via state
Enable it.
authorities, yeah.
so if Montclair Colony said, we don't have good water, we want Suffolk County Water to come in, our only say in it would be, well, where are you gonna drop a well? Oh, you wanna use town land? Okay,
Nope.
then we'd be able to negotiate with them, but if they were able to find a private place.
But if there are 10 houses in Montclair Colony
Mhm.
and they're gonna provide water, and 2 of those 10 people say, no, I don't want it, can they make them join?
No,
No,
No, but there is an end around with the
I was gonna say-
Department of Health and
Right.
septic.
only if they were to do something that
It's building
Department
the
of Health,
house.
yeah, if they did some sort of
Yeah,
renovation.
they won't give you the septic
Expansion,
approval unless you
then
tap
they may
into
say
the
you
loan.
must
Yeah.
tap it.
Oh, if it's there, they're gonna make it that.
Yeah.
Right, like,
Yeah.
so, for
Yeah.
example, if you already live within the West Neck Water District and you're building on a vacant lot, then you have to tie into the water because the health department will require it. So like, there was one, property on Behringer that was vacant, but now it's got a house on it. And so they were required to hook up to West Neck Water District, when they did their construction by the health department, not by Suffolk County Water Authority or by us. So that's the glitch with that.
And the hookup fees are to the homeowner,
Yes,
which are
yeah, the tap.
very high.
So when will Suffolk County be done with their work so they get the 500,000?
I got the impression, let me just look at my notes,
I mean, it's a couple, how many years is it now? 2, 3,
two.
2?
They've done a significant amount of work. Yeah. And testing well takes time. The amount of times you have to pump it and test it, and then it's actually a longer process than you would think. Obviously, it's taken.
But this is,
By year
again,
end.
my preliminary review. Let's,
Yeah,
I'll
so-
get back to you.
Yeah.
And by year end is when they expect to do the DASNY submission. So they have been working on it, it's just, they want to get it in by the end of this month. Yes.
The housing board meeting?
Oh, no, this meeting is on Thursday this week.
Right.
Um,
Any
CAC?
notes, well, any
Yeah.
notes you have on the SOQ that the House Board's gonna be looking at on Thursday, send them today if you can.
Oh, yeah,
RFQ
Liz is on,
or
don't worry.
RFQ.
Or,
You said SOQ.
whatever it's, no, the SOQ is the one I have to do for the county in
Okay.
my other life,
Okay, I
so
was gonna
yeah,
say,
yes,
Okay.
RFQ, thank
What are you
you.
talking about? And then community preservation,
The RFQ is out,
Yeah, I think I sent an email to you
okay?
a few days ago with a copy of the RFQ and a request to send edits to the housing board. I can bump it for you. I'm sure you've gotten a ton of emails. I'll send it to everybody.
I don't. So that was it for my board member reports.
Okay. I had some. So the tree lighting was last Tuesday. It was fabulous. If you haven't been past the glowing, wonderful tree, please do. It was a very good turnout, so that was exciting. A lot of young people, which was really nice to see. And then, what else do we have here? Sorry. The senior holiday lunch is this Thursday at 12 o'clock. And it's going to be pizza and salad. And the DJ, Johnny C, is going to be there, and he's a riot. So I don't know if you've seen him before, but he's great. If you want to attend, please register ahead by reaching out to the senior center and letting them know that you want to come so that they have enough pizza and salad for everybody. Lunch is going to be served at 12:15, and it should run until about 2 o'clock. It's a free event for seniors, but they are accepting donations for the food pantry. So anybody who wants to attend, just let them know. And that's over at the community center. Yeah. Otherwise, we have planning board tonight, ZBA tomorrow, housing board on Thursday. And that's kind of all I have.
Can I just ask something? I saw the agenda for the planning board for this evening. I thought the Gardens Bay Country Club thing was on hold.
No, I emailed Jay and clarified that because he said our request is on hold, so I wanted to clarify what request was on hold, and it had something to do with building department. But our site plan review is still moving forward, I mean, yeah. So that was my message.
Site plan review, that's what they're going to be discussing.
Yeah, just to give you an update, when we do site plan review, we have a pre-conference meeting with the applicant, and we bring in the building department, legal, planning board, CAC, what am I missing? Oh, the GW Grocer usually are environmental consultants, and go through all of the things that was in that items for consideration, and task town engineer with looking at various things. So planning board from that pre-conference was tasked with certain things to look at. So that's what they will be looking at. So they're not actually looking at the entire application, they're looking at the things that are relevant.
Who instructs them to what to look for?
The building, is the head building inspector.
It reads the quarterback.
And then eventually comes back to the town.
We get reports from all of those people who've been tasked with looking at the
Goes
different
into
things. Yeah.
The package.
Yeah.
Site plan review.
I figured since you asked a question, it's a good chance to just
Okay.
go over the procedure. But if you look at the code section 109-3, standard of review, that's got the 14 different things.
So, I'm glad I'm looking at you, Amber, and I'm glad I'm looking at this pile of papers, and I'm looking at my pile of papers, and it's difficult. Meaning, we got these papers all over the place. I'm getting thrown out of my house because I got piles, okay?
Yes,
You see the basement mine.
yes.
I'm just
This is.
wondering, I just wonder how the council people here operate unless you have a bedroom and an extra bedroom kicking around.
It's me, I got a big bedroom upstairs, 2 queen-size beds, and I have paper stacked on each bed. On the desk, I
My
have.
whole basement covered.
Yeah, I brought all,
It's hard to walk around with this stuff. There's nothing, I mean, like you want to come here, you got to carry a suitcase with you.
Correct.
Yes.
And we don't have offices, so it's not like you can stay.
You're gonna take care of this.
And you bring the wrong documents sometimes with you.
there used to be a file cabinet, which we could work on. There was a file cabinet that all 4 town board members we shared. I don't know, yeah, I don't know. But no, at least it was like something to, like, at least have some files that I didn't have to carry back and forth. And actually, I was lucky at the time, because I'm not sure whether maybe Colligan didn't use his, so I had 2 drawers. So.
Well, file cabinet.
I think the best thing,
Yeah.
after you pass a bunch of stuff, you can go home and throw out all those papers.
I split my room in half. Literally half of my room is an office with just this on like 4 fold-out tables. It's ridiculous. The other half is where I sleep.
Any other board reports?
The CPF had a committee committee meeting yesterday morning.
Yeah.
Coffee and donuts were supplied by the outgoing chairman, who received a lot of good testimonial from the committee and a lot of accolades.
And a proclamation from Senator Colombo, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's terrific.
And a little muscle man trophy.
And Nanette Lawrenson had given a presentation to the CPF that you're going to have an event in the History Center on the White family. A history of painters and weak fish is in there as well. But they say 30 paintings that they're going to be able to display. And that was probably, I think, your best acquisition, the White property. You started that on your own. You called up George White and started that process years ago and made that happen.
Listen, Albert, it always boils down to this. It's not about, I don't like to take the credit for anything because it's really, it's what we do with CPF reflects the town. Town should be proud about the acquisitions we have, okay? It makes people understand why they have, where their taxes are and what the wonders of good things. So I mean, it's a good thing. And coming into this office, okay, I want to take some of those same thought processes relative to land preservation and environmental things. And I think I can take some of those things and really relate here as we have been talking about the CEQA and maybe adjusting the wetlands to have better controls. I mean, we've all, heard, you know, I wasn't involved with some of these things, but I'm really looking forward to really, we have to get these things done because we got some big guns coming and we just have to do it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no. No, it was a good morning. It was a good morning. Everybody went around the table and really heaped accolades on you. I don't know, it's getting a little.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
But it was nice. It was good. Peter Vilbeck came in, Mike Laspia, John Needham. It was nice.
Ed Schulfer.
Yeah, Ed got out. Okay.
It's a good program and that's all, listen, I'm only the beneficiary of all the work that other people did. I mean, I'm, you know, the four supervisors, Doherty, Girth, Siller, I mean, so it reflects, it's about, that's the community character. What you saw that day, that's what makes our island special. Okay, those people, okay. But anyhow.
Good stuff.
Anything else from board member reports? Okay, thank you.
Nope.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to go over the employment history of an employee. Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.